Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
No,
right.
we're already on the wrong path. We've all, like 3 words in, and we're already on the wrong path. No.
Okay.
No.
You know
Okay.
what? You know what, John? We tried to give you the power and the responsibility of the podcast
Yeah,
intro.
no,
I think you blew it. I think that we are unfortunately going to have to do what we do every week and say, all right, Dan, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so earlier this week, Christian went to the gym and oh man.
It really is true though, dude. Like my life is just like it sucks now. It's just like I have nothing to talk about other than that, and it's not interesting to anyone but me. So it's like that's it. I've run out of anecdotes. Like every interesting thing that's happened to me has happened to me at the gym in the past like month, and no one wants to hear about it. So I just don't know.
That's something we can both agree on in this podcast.
Yeah, hey, you know what? And that's beautiful. Maybe that was sort of the point of this pod. Oh, hey, I also I want to address specifically. Wait, hold on. Can I address this specifically? Wait up a second. I'm going to ask Dan first. Hey Dan, that message that you posted in the Cape Shit Discord.
Probably not then. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Wait.
Go on. No, go on.
Okay.
No, there was a specific message in the Cape Shit Discord where it looks like a screenshot of like a text conversation where Dan posted a screenshot, and I don't know who this was, but so shout outs to Dan. Nice. No information was doxed in the posting of this message, just a cropped screenshot.
A gray text bubble.
Right. They said, also, you should definitely consider the podcast. And by the way, this is, this is going out to whoever wrote this bullshit, frankly. Also, you should definitely consider the podcast a personal victory over Christian LMAO. He may never like Marvel movies, and that's fair, which that is fair. That's the one part.
Sure, anybody can like anything they want.
Right,
sure.
Anyone's allowed to like anything they want. But he's watching them seriously and openly enjoying himself.
That's true.
Which, okay, you know what? That's all fine. Frankly, okay.
Everything has been true throughout this whole thing so far.
Until the next
Everything
line.
up till now. Rather than blindly hating how he was in the beginning. And I just want to make one thing abundantly fucking clear. It's never been blind hatred. Something you got to understand, right? And again, I want to just address you the nebulous you, whoever the fuck you are, right? Phase 1 sucked. Like, and having the context of everything, how I have it now, it still so nothing
It might
blind.
even suck more.
Right. Yeah, frankly, knowing what I know now, if I went back to phase 1, I might even like it less this time around. And phase 2, like very middle of the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I add to this?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to add my own background info that I don't necessarily say that I've gathered.
Okay, sure.
Before we started Cape Shit, I think it would be a fair thing to say that you blindly hated the MCU.
I disagree because
Here's why.
Okay, well, all right.
Here's
I will
why.
back off and let you finish. Okay.
Oh my God.
Because you watched one movie at the end of phase 1, which is where you based most of you've watched like other clips and snippets and things throughout the MCU. You watched one Avengers movie at the end of phase 1.
Sure is very bad.
And said it was terrible and I didn't understand half the things that were going on in that movie.
Of course.
And
Not
I
very
said,
good. Not a good movie.
I
Okay.
said,
Dan said,
when we started this podcast,
What did Dan say?
I think that if you watched the entirety of the first phase, that you would enjoy the first Avengers movie more
Yeah, sure.
than when you originally watched it.
Right.
Because in my opinion, you went in with no knowledge into an existing franchise, watched the 7th movie, and blind hated it.
Right. Okay. But see, again, not blind. I had plenty of reasons.
Blind is what I consider no context going into the 7th movie of a franchise. It's like watching the final part of Harry Potter, the 7th movie, and going, I don't really like Harry Potter. Or I watched the final Lord of the Rings movie, but I didn't watch the first 2 or know anything about The Hobbit. I hate Lord of the Rings.
I actually do kind of hate Lord of the Rings, but I've watched
I'm not
them
surprised.
all, you know?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this isn't going to be, maybe we need to do like a Divergent, like Lord of the Rings shit on podcast one of these days.
No.
Ring shit.
No, yeah, ring shit. But no, what I'm saying, nothing blind, because for me, blind isn't not understanding all of the context. Blind is not having rationale. And me saying, I think it's dumb for a franchise to exist that I have to like sit through like 8.5 hours beforehand until I can like go watch this one movie that's supposed to be a blockbuster that I care about, like, to actually understand it. That's dumb. That's set up in a dumb way. And I think now, even that we're like, I don't even know how many hours. We're like 30 hours. I've like spent so much of my life watching these movies.
Yes,
I still
a lot
think
of your
that
life.
I think that is a dumb way to set up a franchise still. So I would actually think that, but you are right. I do have more context for it now. And because I have more context for it now, there are aspects of the Avengers that I probably enjoyed a little bit more this time around, but it's still a dumb way to set your franchise up. And I also think that like Marvel movies in general, if you're just looking at phase 1, we're not good. Like, and phase 2, again, in my opinion, mostly not good. Like, there was like a couple moments here and there where it's like, all right, whatever. The thing I'm noticing about phase 3 is that at least, they have like enough of a budget, and maybe it's not even the budget. Maybe it's really more about like the fact that there's enough notoriety around the franchise now that they're able to like take risks and like do things a little differently. So it's not just this completely cookie cutter thing. But yeah, the phase 3 movies have been better other than Civil War, which sucked. And we've watched 2 other ones
wrong
since
about.
then.
I mean,
I'm not.
that's
I'm
it.
objectively
I mean, just
correct
factually,
about
you're
that.
wrong. Just factually.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Right,
to
and
agree
we've
with
watched like 2 or 3 past that, and they've been fine. But really, the best one is still Ant-Man. So I'm just trying to say that like, nothing blind about my hatred. By the way, just a very open-eyed, staring directly at it kind of, gazing into the abyss style hatred coming out of me. And I don't consider that a Dan victory whatsoever.
Oh, I
think in
do.
no
I consider
world-
this entire podcast a Dan victory, honestly.
Well, okay, I guess this entire podcast is a Dan victory in the sense that he's like gotten me to sit down and like watch a bunch of bullshit I don't care about. But it's not a victory in the way that your anonymous poster was suggesting.
I actually have never posted any of these podcasts online. This is just to get you to watch the MCU. these podcasts don't exist.
Yeah,
so let's find out
all the statistics.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God, that would be so funny, dude.
Let's just find out now how Spider-Man Homecoming falls into these lists of movies with now MCU lover Christian.
Right.
Here we go.
Yep. Excelsior. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name's Christian. I didn't really like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, fucking God. Okay. Well, my name's Dan, and this is going to be another one.
My name is John, and I kind of almost agree with Christian on this one.
Okay. All right.
Get fucked, Dan!
No, well, we haven't even gone through it yet. You haven't given me an
Sure.
opportunity to make you change your mind. So.
Right, that you know what?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fair. I have not given you an opportunity to make me change my mind.
Like I have many times already. 2 Captain America movies, Ant-Man. I'm winning so far.
Yeah,
Avengers was better.
A hand. How many times you've changed the mind?
Yeah, I'm
at
actually like
least.
because we've recorded enough of these at this point, and like I'm not even trying to be funny right now. Like actually, like there must have been a time where you made me change my mind. I just can't even think of what it would be. Like, was there like some definitive moment where I was like, you know what, fuck, I think you're actually right about that. You know what?
I think
Hold on.
3.
Yeah, when they made Vision heavy. but it wasn't actually Vision being heavy. It was her. I was like, you know what? I think I was wrong about that.
There have been many smaller moments where you're like, I'll give you that one. There have been.
Yeah.
There have been many. Also, the biggest one, really, which was the initial assumption of the MCU of you liking the Avengers more with the context of Phase 1.
Right, of course.
I mean,
the
that
whole
was
sort of impetus of this podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
so if you think that
But-
this franchise is set up in a bad way, then like, what do you think about One Piece, for example?
I have no opinion.
okay.
Okay. I'm
That's
just saying
for
that's
anime
like a,
shit.
It's like a 1100 episode
Right.
anime that's been going for like 30 years and still not
Yeah.
over.
I know,
So-
and I will never watch it, Like,
Well,
but hold on. But I do want to say that if Dan gets a victory in there, I also want to point out that I also get a victory. If we're going just based on what this podcast was
I mean, that's
initially,
true too, yeah.
because
Okay.
my whole point was that I was like, this shit is like cliche and tropey and falls back on like very formulaic cookie cutter things. And I will point this out to you every single time one of them shows up until you not only see it in this media, but you see it present in all kinds of media that you're watching and understand how often it's used. And to be fair, that has also happened.
you know what? You're right. The
There you go.
difference between us, though,
Okay, sure.
is I wanted to make a positive impact in your life, and you wanted to make a negative impact in mine.
I mean, yeah, you know what? That's very fair. That's a fair difference.
Oh man! Well, speaking of positivity, let's
All
talk
right, hey,
about
what's up,
Spider-Man
everyone? Yeah, wait, hold
Homecoming.
on.
Yeah,
It's,
Mr. Positive himself.
Yeah, Mr. Positive himself. What's up? This is the point where I say, hey, what's up? It's another episode of Cape Shit, the podcast that you're listening to. You already knew that. If you've made it this far, which I pray you have, thank you for being here. Tell your friends to listen to Cape Shit. I say that every time too, but I'll say it again this week. Tell your friends to listen to Cape Shit. Today, we watched a movie. It was called Spider-Man Homecoming. And it's about, and it was directed, starred in, produced by, written by, and lead acted by Spider-Man. What's that guy's name?
Well, I'm glad you did
Tom
all the
Holland.
research about this part.
By
so-
Mr. Spider-Man
Did you
himself.
say it was
Tom,
directed by Spider-Man?
It was not. None of that is
Right.
true. So
by
let's get into the
Tom
real.
Holland.
Let's get into the real
who famously
information.
went on record as saying this movie fucking sucks, and it was a weird inside the actor's studio interview
Okay.
that they pulled off of YouTube, but I have the behind the scenes footage, and it did not really paint it in a very bright light. I'm going to be interested to see how Dan tries to defend this one. Anyway, back to you, Dan.
And then Christian woke up from his dream, and then this was the real information about that movie. It came out
Right,
July
okay, sure.
7th, 2017. Actually was one of the higher individual hero movies at $880 million made worldwide.
Only $880 million.
That's it.
Didn't even hit the one.
Only $880 million.
R.I.P.,
That's all.
dude.
John Watts is actually the person who directed this movie, and he also directed Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right.
So he ends up directing the entire trilogy of the Spider-Man movies in the MCU. He also, and what he's probably most known for, is directing the mid-credits scene in Venom 2. Which was the mid-credit scene where Venom gets transported to the MCU for No Way Home. Anyways, it's a terrible. He directed just the mid-credit scene of the Venom 2 movie.
Dude, I bet he got like $12 million for that too. Like, what a life.
It's
bro.
possible. But the interesting thing here, which I know, Christian, you've been waiting for this part of it. This was not distributed by Disney.
Right. Yeah.
If you watch this movie, you saw some big Sony signs coming up in the front of this movie.
Yeah, and the back, like I'm like, God damn, dude, Sony really wants you to know they're like, this is our property.
Yep.
Yeah, which in reality, Kevin Feige still had a very strong hand over this, obviously, because there were MCU properties inside of this movie. It was co-produced by Columbia Pictures and Marvel Studios, which is part of Disney, and distributed by Sony Pictures. This was part of their agreement in the ability to take Spider-Man and put him in the MCU because, again, Spider-Man is owned from a movie rights perspective by Sony. That is still the case today. Tom, when he originally signed on, well, Spider-Man as the role, when that was initially signed on to the MCU, I think got 5 or 6 movies. So that'll be 3 of the movies that will be dedicated to Tom, which are the 3 I mentioned, and then 3 or so appearances in other movies. And we don't really know what the future looks like for Spider-Man and Tom Holland specifically after the most recent movie, but yeah, Sony owns a lot of Marvel properties still to this day that, Sony's very much willing to work with Disney on as long as they get to put their name and get the money for that content.
Yeah, I would say, goddamn Sony, shut the fuck up. But then they made Into the Spider-Verse, and you know what? You got to give them props where they deserve it.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse was cool, dude.
Yeah, the one thing they did that was extremely successful was
from
Into
the
the
Emoji
Spider-Verse.
Movie to Into the Spider-Verse. How did they do it?
Yeah. So yeah, that is that kicks us off for this movie, the first dedicated Spider-Man movie in the MCU.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed like directly off the rip is that we get an opening to the movie without the Marvel theme happening because you need to see Sony first. And I was like, that's an interesting break in formula. Because normally it's like the Marvel shit's like the front and center, like, whatever. But this one, it's like they really want to get that Sony logo nice and big on your screen before you even hear it. And I will say, to the credit of this thing, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but it's appropriate. When the Marvel credits play, it's like the symphony version of the Spider-Man song, and that was cool. Like I was like, hey, I like
the music
that.
in this
fun.
one. I thought was great. I thought the music in this movie was really great. It was fun. It's also fun to hear like that, the symphony version of like the original Spider-Man song used across the movie. It's fun.
That was cool. So so basically directly after the Avengers, New York is reeling because aliens came through a portal. Do you remember that? It happened, and it's been referenced a lot. One of the things that the aliens did was leave their shit behind, apparently, which I'll say, like, okay, you know what? Can we get a little air horn?
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
We're getting the early one. Shit. I pressed the wrong button.
That's the intro.
And?
All right, and? Okay, cool.
Okay,
thank you so much. Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's Christian's nitpick right off the bat corner.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna point out it's really silly to me that it's like they spent 8 years shoving alien tech around everywhere and no one ever met. It's like kind of like how Dan has made the point before where it's like it's weird that like sometimes shit happens, but it's like where are the Avengers? And then they're just like not talked about. It's an interesting pacing thing, I think, in the universe, where as the universe gets larger and larger and larger and larger and larger, you're just going to sort of run into some of these problems, which is why, again, it is a tiny nitpick on my end. But it's like you're sort of made to see that like, all this alien technology showed up right after the portal opened, and then these dudes have been like making weapons and selling them around for 8 years, but like no one ever really figured it out until like now, and they sort of like feebly addressed that by him even mentioning it at one point, being like, oh, everything was going fine, the Spider-Man showed up. But I still am just like, someone would have done it's like you can't just have like lasers going off in the middle of fucking New York without someone sniffing around on it, but it just doesn't happen until this movie starts. But anyway.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from. I also think we'd have to figure out how long do we think is reasonable to take destroyed alien technology and turn it into sellable weapons that you could handle with 2 hands that would be usable in day-to-day life. How many years do we expect that to happen without government funding, without large laboratories, without all of that stuff. We're talking about this crew of people doing that work. And we're also talking about the damage control department of the government being established during those 8 years. And clearly by the fact that when Spider-Man gets stuck in that warehouse, they have warehouses of alien tech that's been discarded through these fights, right? So I don't foresee that as a problem in this specific instance. I do like, where are the Avengers? Where are other heroes during these big fights? And also a lot of the other movies haven't been on the ground in New York fighting individual people doing crimes like bank robberies. So we also have to take into consideration where the previous movies have taken place and what their impact was to low-level street gangs or people robbing banks, right? So like, I don't think any of that was unreasonable. I love the idea of like being able to see down on the ground, the aftermath, the impact of those things. And I think 8 years is not unreasonable to say we took garbage alien tech from a destruction of New York and now we sell them quietly.
Yeah, so I had kind of assumed that they had just been selling them for basically the entire time. Yeah. So if what you're positing is that it's like 5-6 years have gone by, they've just been quietly like getting the arsenal up, and now like at this point they've just kind of gotten into selling it, then maybe. But my impression was that they had been selling it the entire time.
Yeah, and also because well, I mean, that wasn't my gripe with it. My gripe was like where they had the contract to get rid of all the stuff in the first place, and then the government with Stark Industries comes in like, hey, we're taking over, and what's his face, Vulture Man is like, but this is all I have. And I'm like, then what the fuck were you doing before you got this job? Like, why is this so important to you and your company when you like, do you not have other contracts?
Well, I think he
did. Then also, I'm going to point out too that, like, you know, by the time you see his house, it's like a fancy ass motherfucking house. So it's
that
like,
too.
But I think
that
he did
just
though.
happen? You know,
I don't think so. I think that he did have other contracts. What he was saying when he talked to the person from government, from the damage control team, was, I hired all of these people for this job. They all have families. They need to be supported, all of that. I didn't get the impression that his company was already that large. His company became that large when he got the contract to clean up the garbage from New York, right? So I didn't see it that way. So he could have already been living large because his company was smaller before they took the government contract.
Yeah, but I don't think he was living, because then he has that monologue later where he's just like, all the people, and every time you think you're about to get ahead, then you're eating their scraps.
Sure.
You know, so like I think that he's just like a pissed off New York guy.
And
you know?
that kind of feeds into our original gripe with like the timeline. Is he seemed like his company was like in the dumps after they took over, so the only way to keep them afloat was to start immediately selling off stuff.
Right. Which is what I assumed had been happening.
But that doesn't necessarily mean they formed that into usable guns.
Right.
Like, they could still sell off the alien tech without that
That's
being
what we're
sold.
saying.
But
they had been selling that for 8 years. So, like, how did they go 8 years without anyone catching a
Because
scent?
that stuff doesn't become guns that explode and make noise and call them out until they're made into weapons, that which they got caught, by the way, by using the weapons out in public, where then Spider-Man caught that happening.
Right, but also Ned had like that little piece of it that wasn't a weapon, but then became a weapon.
But then became, which surely
due
would
to
have happened
radiation
at some point in the past 8 years.
But that just happened, you know? Like,
it happened like completely on accident.
Yeah.
And also we're getting way ahead of ourselves. When like, it's a bomb. I was like, oh, fuck. And then it's like, that was such a weird explosion that came out of that fucking thing. I was like, it didn't really feel like a bomb to me. Anyway, that's,
but it's an alien bomb.
It's an alien
Come on.
bomb.
It's an alien bomb. Anyways, now that we go back to the start of this movie, so you know, look, I get, I'll split it 50-50 with you on that, okay? I'll actually take 60, you'll take 40.
I don't know. Hold on.
Of the faults? Yes.
No. Okay. But anyways, I like the idea of like looking. The overall kind of view of this movie was how do we look at kind of a microscopic lens when it comes to the MCU and look down at the neighborhood level of how the MCU has affected day-to-day life of people. And now a new superhero coming into his own. How does that work in society with the Avengers that exist in this world, right? So I like the idea of whenever we get to see that. Like, for example, in the Phase 4, there's a TV show, Miss Marvel. I really liked Miss Marvel for the reason that it was based around their family. It was a much smaller story. It wasn't like a huge impact to the entirety of the world, at least for a majority of it. So
it felt more like a comic book issue than like a big high stakes movie, which is always cool.
Yep. All right, and then we go 8 years later. And I know 8 years later, and they kind of give us a quick view that they're now building alien weapons, and we see Vulture fly in for the first time there as well. Before we get to a Peter Parker film, where we get to see the background of what happened in Civil War from Spider-Man's perspective, which was tons of fun in my opinion.
Yeah, please. As long as it's negative, I will allow you to say it.
It's half and half.
Okay.
First of all, I think it's really cool that. Okay, so I'm gonna say I liked it, but also what the fuck? Because if you're Peter Parker, like, of course you'd be making this sort of like vlog video thing, but like, you wouldn't, because you're supposed to keep all this stuff on the down low. And if you're like vlogging everything and like you're narrating like, oh shit, look, I'm gonna fight Captain America really quick, hold on. It's like, you don't want people to know. That was like a big point about like not telling anyone, and then he's like recording it all for himself. So like, what happens if someone gets their hands on the tape or like?
Yeah, but he's also like 15 years younger than us. Like, we're talking about like Zoomers like recording themselves doing everything they do, regardless of the consequence of that.
I get that, but that's not an excuse. You know, it was, even Tony Stark knew that he was doing it, and he was like, just let him do it.
And Happy was and like, there's like a thing where like Happy, who's been like a complete fucking hard ass the entire time, he's like literally filming like top secret shit, and Happy's just sort of like, hey, you can't show that to anyone, right? And he's like, I know, and he's like, all right, run along, Yeah,
it's a leap. I'll also say,
it's a leap. It's a leap.
I'll also say two quick things. Number one, they know Spider-Man is extremely intelligent. Number two, Tony Stark has full access to everyone's cell phones, networks, the government, like all this shit. If he really didn't want something to get out there, he could knock it out there.
Yeah, well, except for the fact that like then like a high schooler like cracks the encryption on the suit and deactivate. It's like, so how smart is he? Dude.
Okay, but that's with direct access to the suit.
Like all my gripes aside about like the logistics of the realistic implications, I thought it was a cool way to introduce Peter Parker as Peter Parker. It shows that he's like he's very young. Like, he's not like a Tobey Maguire is 30 years old but playing like someone who just got out of high school. It's like, this kid is a kid, and he really they really push that part of his character, and it's really good.
Yeah, I thought I'm kind of with you. I didn't really like the intro for all the reasons that I just stated, but I think it would have sat better with me if it had been like a little shorter. Like, I probably could have just kind of gotten into the fun of it and not been so tied up in like the realism of the thing. But it's like, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And that's where it becomes like a little unreasonable to me. Is like, 4 minutes into a fucking like selfie intro thing, I'm just like, all right, I get it. Like, let's fucking move it along, please.
Well, I get it. You just don't like to have fun. I think that's what
I do. I do like to have fun. I don't like things that make me bored. I like being the opposite of bored, which is having fun.
Yep. Well, Tony and Peter are now heading back to New York to drop off Peter, and Tony tells him that he shouldn't do anything that he wouldn't do or anything that he would do, there's a little slice where he should live, which is right in the middle. And then he goes to open the door for him, which looks like a hug. Keep in mind,
that was a good gag.
Yeah, I like the hug part where Peter thinks that Tony's going to hug him. That will also be a little thing to be referenced in the future there, Christian. So keep on to that a little bit.
Okay, you know what? I wasn't going to, but now that you said that, I will. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. 2 months later, Peter's at school. Homecoming is coming up. And guess what? They said the word homecoming. They said the title of the movie in the movie. It's one of those moments. Wow. I know.
Yeah, I know. I personally, I clapped. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know.
I was going out of my.
I was making the
around
pog
on
face.
the floor. Yeah, I was making the pog face. I pissed myself.
Sure. Okay. Well, this is where we get the first look at the fact that Peter is still developing his web fluid. He's constantly like working through and changing the way that he works. Also, this is a kind of a point where we can note. Tom Holland's Spider-Man uses web fluid. Tobey Maguire's did not. Tobey Maguire just shot webs out of his wrist. Right. They're developed by his own body. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man also made web fluid himself. So both Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield were the web fluid boys, and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man just magically made webs out of his wrists.
Right. And also he like literally he literally labels it like web fluid version 3, and it's just like chilling inside of a desk at his school, which is like, you know.
Well, he also stores it like under the locker.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean,
because he's very strong, by the way.
I mean, the thing is, if I sit around. Like I'm gonna be selective with my nitpicks throughout this because there's like because there like because there's but even more so than most Marvel movies, there is a lot in this movie where it's like you just sort of need to stretch your imagination, and if you take any of it too literally, it's not really going to make that much sense. So I'm not going to try and dwell on those things too much, but I will point them out every once in a while. And again, just like the amount of Spider-Man shit that he's just sort of doing openly is like a little intense. Like he's doing a lot of very out in the open Spider-Man stuff throughout this entire movie. That's like a little suspicious.
And like, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but there's also the point where they get the Chitauri grenade or whatever, and he's like tinkering with it, like in lab at his school, out in the open. There are other kids in the workshop. And like, there's a teacher there, but like nobody's paying attention to what they're doing. They got like a purple glowing orb.
Right. That's which, by the way, not an Infinity Stone. I just want to point out last episode, or maybe it was the episode before last episode, but Dan kind of made fun of me because there was like a glowing thing and I hadn't realized that it had been an Infinity Stone, and you were like, a glowing rock in the MCU, that's an Infinity Stone.
Come on now.
But you did say that, and so because of that comment, it was like drilled into my head.
Okay.
Where
if you want context.
I saw the purple glowing rock, and I was like, oh, that's probably going to be one of the Infinity Stones based on that thing. And then it just wasn't an Infinity Stone.
Well, I assumed that you would use some level of human context, which would be the difference is you found this purple rock on the ground along with hundreds of thousands of other debris of purple rocks versus a green rock inside the Eye of Agamotto that was a central part of the movie inside the MCU while Infinity Stones were being revealed. That's the difference that I thought you might pick up on throughout these two movies.
Dude, I'm just saying, you said glowing rock, bro. You said it's all glowing. I was like, okay. Yeah. I know, exactly. Yeah, you're like imposing new
you know what? That's fine. Let me adjust. Okay. Not every glowing rock in the MCU is an Infinity Stone. Only ones that you would use some level of common sense might be an Infinity
Well, that
Stone.
seems
Is that better for you?
contrary
Is
to
that better
what
for
you
you?
said
Like,
before.
Right. Yeah, because the whole point that you were saying before was that common sense aside, it's just if it's glowing, it's probably an Infinity Stone.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
I
even
don't
if they
remember
say
that.
it's
I don't
something
remember
else
that. I think that's a lie.
explicitly, It's going to be an Infinity Stone.
Yeah,
Nah,
don't touch it.
okay. Anyways, where are we at? Are we still in this movie?
Web
I forgot.
fluid.
Okay.
Web fluid, yeah.
We do get to meet Zendaya's character for the first time, but we don't find out what her name is yet.
Yeah,
which so okay. When you watch this movie, Christian, as someone who
Right.
has never watched this movie before,
Yes.
were you, as a person who knows Spider-Man, looking out for who MJ was, or were you already aware that, spoiler, Zendaya is MJ in the MCU?
Okay, 3 points to that.
Here we go.
I have a 3-point answer to the question. No, I was not looking out for who MJ was.
Okay.
No, I wasn't really thinking about it. And
Okay.
I have no idea who Zendaya is. I didn't realize that that's like a famous, important person. So then
Yes.
at the end, when it's like MJ, I was like, oh, okay, then sure, why the fuck not? But I didn't.
And
I
then
didn't,
you stood up and clapped,
and
right?
then I stood up and I pissed myself again. Actually,
Okay.
yeah, but no, yeah, I had no idea who she was or that she was like famous or important or whatever. So I didn't think about
Well,
it. You know?
when it came out, she wasn't like super famous.
Gotcha.
Today, she is very famous.
Right, and probably as a result of some of this Spider-Man fanfare.
Some of that,
Some of
yes.
it,
The other one is Euphoria, which is like her.
Is that the one about like the sexually active high school kids?
Probably. I've never watched
I don't know. I
but
haven't
it
watched
sounds
it,
like
but I do know
Okay.
it's gotten a
Yeah, of course.
shit ton of awards, and it's
Right, I'm
mostly
pretty sure
because
that's
of her.
the one about the sexually active
Oh,
high
okay.
school kids. Which, by the way, I've never seen it because to me that's disgusting. But you know, it seems like
Okay,
something
well.
Dan might like. Who knows?
Okay, here we go. So, we find out that Peter is starting to quit his hobbies. He's like really attached to this idea that he's basically an Avenger at this point. He's just
Right.
waiting for the phone call from Tony or Happy for him to go on his next mission, which I liked this idea throughout the movie here, where it was Peter kind of just waiting to be called back in, and that he needed to quit all his hobbies, and then he needed to do all of this. And we kind of got to see the effect on this teenager of like getting a taste of being a hero and then having to go back to school afterwards. I think that this happens even in society today without the hero part of it, obviously, where it's like somebody becomes viral or they become a famous Twitch streamer or famous in Fortnite or whatever. And we've seen like these kids sometimes try to drop out of school to focus on that stuff before they're actually ready to do so. So it's kind of
Right.
an interesting parallel, I thought, personally.
Right, then you like end up with a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
like the YouTuber
dreams,
Dream.
you know.
Yeah, like the YouTuber dream.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, the one who plays Minecraft, in case, you know, for our audience that's very much into Minecraft speed running. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, for all you Zoomers out there.
Yeah, we also see him go to pick up a sandwich from the deli, and it just, this kind of sets off the ongoing runner in this movie that everyone is into Aunt May.
Yeah,
Everybody.
which also like, but she like doesn't get it either, which I thought was just like a weird. It's just a weird way to write that. Like it's like everyone hits on her, but she's like oblivious to the fact that she's being hit on, and that's kind of what the character is.
Yeah. Yep.
So my question was, did they write Aunt May to be a hot Italian woman and had all the jokes in place and then were like, oh, hey, Marissa Tomei fits the bill perfectly? Or did they get Marissa Tomei and they're like, oh, now we have a hot Italian Aunt May. Now we get to make these hot jokes.
I'd actually say it's probably the second one. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know what their goal was there with Aunt May specifically, because in the other two with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but also they took a different approach with this movie, which made them both younger, right? They made both Aunt May and Spider-Man younger characters for this.
Yeah.
And that might also be because they wanted to span how long Spider-Man could be in the MCU. I don't know. But I thought they were both interesting choices. I thought like in the Tobey Maguire Aunt May, like she's very old.
Very old.
Like very, very old. So putting her in peril was like not, I don't know. It was kind of not as believable, I guess.
Yeah.
Because one explosion.
It's not cool. And
it's also not cool, yeah.
You do that to that old lady. Like, come on, that's fucked up, dude.
I mean, she was very old.
Very old.
Yeah, like I don't understand the choice of that Aunt May in the first Tobey Maguire movie because that was not
like
great.
The three of us will probably never live to be as old as Aunt May was portraying those. Like that's how old she was, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yep, that's very true. Well, now we get our first kind of look at how Peter spends his days. He spends first of all his time changing in an alleyway. Getting
which by the way, before you like gloss over that, I actually liked that scene, to be fair. Like I thought because all of the suit up scene in a Marvel movie is like a very iconic part of the formula, and you always have one. It's like, you know, or symbolically have one, you know, like something like Thor. Like Thor doesn't really get like a suit up scene per se, but he does get like a Mjolnir grab, you know, which is like sort of an epic, you know, you sort of get the character coming into themselves a little bit, you know, you get the Tony Stark Iron Man suit, you know, you get the Banner Hulk transformation, you get the Captain America.
I'm always angry.
You know, like, you know, you get and he is always angry.
True.
You know, you get sort of like the Captain America, like switching from, you know, his like whatever suit to like the iconic Captain America suit where he's like, I think we need a little old fashioned, you know, like it's like whatever. Like I'm just saying that, like, you know, the suit parts of all of these movies are really heavily focused on, like a lot of emphasis is put on them. And I think the deliberate decision to have Spider-Man suit up in this like shitty suit in this like clunky way in an alley, it like really it was cool because it's a suit up scene in a Marvel movie, but it's sort of like the anti-suit up scene almost, which also then goes to show, which is sort of what the central theme of this movie is that like Peter Parker is still getting used to being Spider-Man. Like he doesn't have this like graceful way that he's doing anything at this point. He just, it's like his decisions are clumsy, his reactions are clumsy, his suit is clumsy, and even him getting into the suit is also clumsy. Like it's all clumsy, and I felt like that was like good. I actually liked that.
I want to add to that, and I didn't really attribute this to Spider-Man being like new to being Spider-Man, but even the way that they animate him like swinging around is like it doesn't seem as smooth or fluid as either Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, even though we have like, you know, good enough animators working on this movie to make him feel like that. It's like he uses like inefficient methods of swinging a lot of the time in this movie, which is like a really interesting point.
There's a lot of moments of that where like on the Washington Monument where he's climbing up the side, like eventually he realizes he could use his webs to like pull him up faster, but at the start he's just climbing instead of like using momentum of the webs to like bring him up faster. Also, there's a part in this intro here where when he suits up and he's going around the town and things like that, he falls over after swinging onto the rooftop of one of the buildings. Like you never, outside of the very first swings that Tobey Maguire does, after that, to your point, it's always perfect swinging. Like Andrew Garfield's movie, to its credit, even though it was the first time he's becoming Spider-Man, had some of the best Spider-Man swinging in the entirety of Spider-Man on the big screen. But it was as if he had been Spider-Man for 15 years in regards to how amazing he looked as he went through the air, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, and you know, it's sort of like the punchline to a joke later, but even when he's like sort of running through the field and he like goes to like hit like the web and it like doesn't connect to anything. And it's sort of like the first time that's happened to him. So he's like, oh shit, oops. And then he just kind of has to like run through the I did like, if there's anything I liked about this movie, and we're skipping now all the way ahead to the very end of the podcast where I say, this is what I liked about this movie. So sorry, spoiler alert. But what I did like about this movie was that I thought that it did a very good portrayal of like a dude clumsily discovering their powers and getting better at them. And the Spider-Man that you see at the beginning of the movie versus the Spider-Man that you see at the end of the movie, it's like you can tell like there's been this subtle evolution at how comfortable he is doing Spider-Man stuff, and it all kind of pays off in the climax of the movie. When, you know, he's doing things that he's been sort of slowly learning and figuring out throughout the entirety of the film, also without really beating the audience over the head with it. It's more of sort of like this subtle kind of rise, which, again, if you've ever listened to this podcast, you will know I like things like that. That was cool to me. So credit where credit's due. I liked that. And going back, like that suit up scene, and I know I was like, oh, hold on, I just want to say something about it really quick, and now I've been talking for like 10 minutes, but like, I'm just saying like that is like the perfect kickoff to everything else. It's like that one scene like sums up the entire tone of the movie heading forward, and I just thought it was a good scene.
Sweet. Well, that's a podcast, everybody. Thanks for listening
see ya, everyone. Thanks.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Woo! So throughout his day of being Spider-Man, he gets to try to prevent a car break-in, but it turns out the guy actually owns the car, and he was trying to get into his own car, which leads us to our Stan Lee appearance for the movie, where there's people arguing across the houses and yelling at Spider-Man for trying to help. They also, this is where we get the actual first sighting of alien weapons in use in the neighborhood with some bank robbers, and Spider-Man hops into action to take down the Avengers, clearly, which are in there. Again, as you kind of mentioned of this kid like learning how to be a superhero, I like just the little moments we get, which is right when he comes into the bank and he's like trying to figure out how to position himself to look cool, like when he's gonna confront these bank robbers, right?
Yeah, totally.
I really like those little moments.
Yeah, and and I did. I thought the scene was like kind of fun. Again, you know, it's like it's clumsy, but it's supposed to be. He's like just sort of clumsily fighting them. You know, and then they like hit him in like an anti-gravity sort of thing, and that was like kind of fun because that's sort of like the first moment where it shows that it's like he's actually up against very dangerous forces, the likes of which he has never really reckoned with before, you know, and and then of course a laser goes off. And conveniently, hey, it's Chekhov's deli owner, everybody. You can't introduce a deli owner in the first act without his store also being blown up in the first act because it gets blown up. And, you know, and again, maybe you could just attribute this to like, hey, he's like a kid or whatever, but I did think it was like a little silly that he like sort of has everybody dead to rights inside of the place, and it's like he doesn't like web any of them. He just sort of immediately runs into the deli without dealing with them because we just got like a montage of him doing crime preventative things around the city, so he obviously like has it in his head that he can stick things in place with the web, but he just leaves all the bank robbers on the ground to just go run into the deli really quick. But again,
I mean, I think that made sense based on your point, which is he's learning, and also that he had an immediate emotional connection to that deli and the person who was in there, and there's a fire. It's like,
and there's a cat.
And there's a cat.
More
of course.
there's a cat.
Yeah.
You know?
Which again, if you really want to establish that someone is evil, have them blow up a deli with a cat inside of it. I've always said that. Yeah.
You've always said it.
That someone is good, then they have to save the cat.
They have to save the cat in the blown up deli.
True.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Peter then heads back home, sneaks into his room, goes and closes the door very quietly so that he can sneak in while he's on the ceiling. He jumps
also,
down.
Just really quick before that happens, something else happens. And I
Sure.
just want to address the something else that happens really quick because he calls Happy and Happy answers, which I thought was weird at that point in the movie because it had been establishing that Happy had been completely ignoring him and shutting him out, and like just like you see like a wall of text, so it's like Happy's not responding to him. You watch him try to call Happy several times up until that point with no answer, just the total cold shoulder, and then it's just sort of this convenient moment where he calls Happy. And then all of a sudden, like right now, Happy decides to answer, but only for long enough to tell him that he's like too busy to talk, and then he hangs up. And it just sort of felt like a plot thing. Like it was just like a convenient plot mover. Like it was like, why did Happy decide to answer at that point? Like, what was the motivation behind that?
Sure. Well, I'm glad you're deciding not to call out all the nitpicks. So that's fine.
Anyway, yeah, moving forward.
No, I mean it's good. I'm glad. I don't disagree. You're right.
Woo! That's
Moving
podcast.
on.
Thanks for listening,
Yeah,
everyone.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. Now this is where Ned sees Peter in the Spider-Man outfit, drops a Lego Death Star, which is, I think at that time, it was the largest Lego set that was in existence, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
Anyways, you probably don't
I would
know that,
have
but
no way of knowing that. That's
Anyways,
not information I possess.
Fucking
yeah, I
nerd.
think they ended up building
you
6 of
dork.
these. Yeah, I think they ended up building. Yeah, well, that's true. They built, I think, 6 of these things in preparation for this scene so that they'd have backups. And, you know, there was some clever cutting there to allow them to be able to do this scene without having to build a ton more. But anyway, so this is where he finds out that he is the Spider-Man from YouTube.
Yep.
And that he discusses now how this could make his life much easier too. He could tell everybody that he knows Spider-Man.
That's
But
true.
of course, Aunt May can't know
Right.
because
reasons.
reasons. The same reasons
the
why
same
all the
reasons,
other Aunt
yeah.
Mays can't know, right?
Yeah.
Or
Because
I don't know,
because if Aunt
secret
May
identities.
knew, she'd never let me do this. And
Yeah, 'cause
everyone's
he is
just
still
like,
a
okay, we
child.
accept that. Sure.
he is still a child, so I guess that's fair enough, right?
Also, wait, this is really off topic. But doesn't Tom Holland's English or like American accent sound a lot like Michael J. Fox and like as Marty McFly?
A lot of people have said that before, and there's also been a call for Tom Holland to star in a reboot of Back to the Future as
Okay,
Marty
let's
McFly
not go
character.
too far. We
I'm
don't
just
need-
saying what I've seen on the internet that
Yeah.
backs up your statement.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
you opened that box, John.
Yeah, you opened
Yeah,
it. I
to be
just
fair,
I just
made it
wanted
worse.
to sneak a peek. We didn't need to creak it all the way open. I just wanted to-
It's too
Yeah.
late. Yeah, it's either open or closed for me.
Yeah,
That's
they
the only way it
also
works.
we also get a scene with Tom Holland, aka Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, out at dinner with Aunt May. And from an editing perspective, and I wouldn't expect Dan to maybe have noticed this, but
Wow,
I'm
thank you.
wondering. Well, no, and like
No, I'm
actually,
kidding.
throughout all of the knocks I give you throughout, this actually is not one of them because this is just some like dork ass like editing style decision stuff. So John maybe noticed because he gets into that a little bit, but dude, some of the cuts in this movie were like rough and weird, and it happens a couple times where I'm like, like they're in the middle of dinner and they're talking about like larb, you know, and it's like they're like, oh, I like this larb, like blah, larb, and then it like cuts to Aunt May being like, I larb you, but it's like different lighting and like kind of a different
it's like a
audio
different
level
angle
and a
like-
different angle that
Yeah.
you never see again, and it's like it's this weird like B-roll shot that they just stuck in the middle of the scene for some reason, and it like cuts off the conversation at a weird point, but then the conversation just picks right back up. Like it was almost like a jump scare. Like it was just like they're like, yeah, it's like, I larb you. I was like, fuck. Like, oh God, what was that? You know? And then it's like kind of back into it. And that happens a few times throughout this movie. And it's interesting to me because I don't know why. There's another part later too. We can call it out. when we get there, or maybe not because it's like minor. But like you see the back of Iron Man's, or it's Tony Stark because he's like getting out of the suit, and like the
Damn
the
it, that
dub,
was
Oh, okay, word. That
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Yeah,
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, but like the dub doesn't match up to what his mouth is doing, and but that happens a few times, like and there's more cut, like again it's like weird, like I don't know what happened, but there was like some weird editing kerfuffle at a certain point with this movie where there's stuff that wasn't supposed to go somewhere and they just ended up sticking it there, and the remnants of that are sort of apparent throughout it.
Yeah, I don't really know what causes. I'm sure there's a lot of different things, and they're probably not even all the same issue that happens.
Right.
Where they just have to mess with what they've got.
Well, but I will say that like one thing I will give to Marvel's credit is that they are like meticulous about that kind of shit all the way up until now. So it was just strange to see like in the Spider-Man
Sony.
movie. Yeah, you
Sony.
know what?
Sure,
That's actually fair.
So yeah,
you know
I
what?
have some.
You know what? Okay, totally fair. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that would make sense. That the only Sony movie, and I see a bunch of that shit in it. Yeah, okay.
Because there are going to be some things that I even point out later on where I noticed really shitty like green screen CGI stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
If I'm noticed, and I, like it wasn't even like, oh, I kind of caught like the mouth looked a little weird.
Right.
It was like, who let this go through like
totally.
this? Because this is really baffling. And it wasn't even any of the big stuff. They were smaller, slower moments. Anyways, we'll get to it when we get to it. But
but you know what? That actually blows my mind because you're 100% right. It's like what's the difference? And I guess the difference would be Sony because I noticed it again. Like it wasn't just like one or two. It was like peppered all throughout this movie. There were just weird things like that where I was like, what the fuck is this? But yeah, I guess fuck you, Sony.
Well, that makes sense because Pepper is also in this movie.
Ooh, she is. I know. Shout out to Pepper Potts.
Heyo. Anyways, okay. We skip here. Let's skip into the school now.
Yeah, we're in the school and we get the Captain America PSA.
We do,
Right.
but a little quick note before that
sure.
happens is they're teaching the Sokovia chords in school now, which is I like the little details there. By the way, that's like a fun thing that I like to see. But yes, we do get the Captain America video, one of three we're gonna see.
Yep, and legit. Easily one of my favorite parts of the movie too. Like completely non-ironic. I thought that was really funny. It's like some shit Captain America would do.
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
like that's my kind of humor. Like because it's like it's deadpan in its delivery, but the humor is really obvious. You know,
and we also get the gym teacher introduction, which is Hannibal Buress.
I know. I know. I saw it and I was like, is that fucking Hannibal?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
I know.
And I loved his line, which was
the guy who fucking Me Too'd Cosby, bro. He just like shows up inside of this inside of this movie.
Yeah, and his line delivery after.
Yeah.
Well, good. We can get into that in the Cosby edition of Cape Shit.
Yeah, okay. You know what? I see your point. Moving on.
Great. Yeah. Jesus. No, but it was. Let's go. Let's dive into this.
That's fair.
Shit.
Yeah.
Anyways, he follows it up with a great line, which is, we have to show that, but I'm pretty sure this guy's a war criminal now, by the way.
Yeah.
And I love throughout this movie, he's very deadpan, and it's like he got to write his own lines for this movie because nothing he says in it is like off-brand for him, I feel like. So this was, it was a fun appearance for his character. And then we get Liz and the girls talking about Spider-Man.
I know, which is like such a fucking Marvel moment, dude. Like it's like I don't know.
It's a high school, dude. Like, I mean,
I know, but he's like just within earshot, and it's like the girl that he has a crush on.
Yeah.
Just so happens to be like at the correct volume, and it's like they all like Spider-Man, but
And
she
also,
likes Spider-Man the
they've been
most.
like whispering to each other about stuff that nobody else should be hearing, but then like we can hear her whispers from like across the gym. And,
yeah, of course.
Like, again, I'm just I don't know. Again, if I dwelled on every nitpick, this would be our longest podcast, so I won't. But not my favorite scene.
Yeah, we'll see.
I do like though.
You got a plan to change his mind on this?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I do like though that like the trivia team, you know, there's the
Scientific decathlon or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the science decathlon dudes. It's like they can't figure out if they're like nerds or jocks, so they just sort of like wrote all these dorks to be like stereotypical football bullies, and that always just sort of cracked me up because you sort of like get like this whiplash of the like, you know, edit like answering trivia questions and sort of like talking about high-minded scientific theories, and then they're just like, "Yo, what's up, Penis Parker?" You know,
Yo, Penis
like
Parker's
fucking
a sick burn,
like
though.
shoulder checks him. Yeah,
I think though it's a more realistic view of what high school
Yeah.
probably is
was
today
gonna
than
say
it was
that.
when we were in high school. Like when we were in high school, Christian, you were constantly getting bullied and beaten up because, I mean, look.
Right, yeah,
but like
of course.
today,
Because just
maybe
look
you
at
could
you.
be popular. I don't know. You know?
right.
So I thought it was a more realistic
Yeah,
look to
I
see a
think
more
it's-
variety of people in the science group.
I think it's a more like modern version of what Flash would be, because like you don't have like nowadays you don't need to be like a football jock or whatever. Like there are still assholes within like the STEM space now. So
Yeah.
it like makes sense for Flash to be that dude while also being like, you know, in the same kind of friend group, quote unquote, that Peter Parker's in.
Yep. And this is where Ned then blurts out that Peter knows Spider-Man, which, I mean, Ned immediately fucked over Peter. Like, it took almost no time for him to absolutely go back on his word for this.
Yeah, Ned as a character was like too sort of like, you know, two-dimensional comedy relief character for me. Like I don't know. It's like I feel like when drama needed to be introduced to move the plot along, you just had Ned say something and it was like, "Shut up, Ned," you know, and then the story keeps moving. Like I don't know. I wasn't like a big fan. But to be fair, I wasn't really a fan of any of the characters in this movie
I know, of
other
course.
than Vulture, which I actually thought was a cool ass character.
Well, it's
frankly,
Michael
but-
Keaton, dude, which we're going to get into it. But, like,
Yeah.
Michael Keaton just, again, destroyed. I mean, he did so good in this role.
Yeah, like actually like nailed it. Like I said, I mean,
yeah.
legit. Like again, I always try to be like as unbiased as possible. Like
Sure.
if I like something, I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't, you know. And yeah, fucking Michael Keaton, Vulture, like crushed it. Like that shit was like all of the high points of this movie had something to do with him, and all of the low points of this movie he wasn't present for. So, you know.
Well, we essentially leave off with Ned and Peter getting invited to Liz's party. Wow, very lucky for them. Ned wears the most fashionable hat to this party. They get dropped off by Aunt May, and the idea here is that Peter's going to show up as Spider-Man and make Peter and Ned look real cool. Because the hat isn't going to do it alone, I don't think.
Yeah, which actually, like, to be fair, I think that a lot of the things that they do in this movie where Peter Parker just acts like a fucking idiot, and then they're like, well, he's 15. Like, it's like, I don't really buy it, but this instance is one where I actually
Felt
am
right.
like, yeah, this felt right. Yeah, like this tonally felt correct. Like, because it's like it's a dumb plan, but he like just wants to impress the girl, and he's gonna show up as Spider-Man and be like, "Hey, my friend Peter is a cool guy. Anyway, see, I gotta go." It's like this whole like lead up felt appropriate to what we had seen from the character.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. He gets suited up and he sees an explosion in the distance. And this is where we're going to get our first look at the alien tech being sold on the streets.
Okay, so before we get into the next scene, actually, there's because we're still talking about the party.
The party,
right? He's like,
yeah.
He's on the roof. He's about to like suit up. And this is something that I noticed like a couple times in the movie. Like, Peter Parker wears the nerdiest shirts I've ever seen in my life. And it's funny that he went to this party to, like, try to like impress this girl that he likes, but he's wearing like the geekiest shirt. Like the shirt that he's wearing has like a triangle on it, and
Yeah.
it's like the hypotenuse is like X, and it's like find X, and then there's like a red circle around the X, and it's like an arrow pointing to it says I found X, and
Yeah.
it's just like math jokes like that. Like later on at the end of the movie, he's wearing a shirt that says I lost an electron, and then there's like another atom that's asking like, "Are you positive?" And it's just like the nerdiest shirt. I don't know.
And I'm
just-
the nerdy one in this podcast. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's not.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's
it's not.
that's stuff that you would wear. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't even get it. You had to
Yeah.
explain it.
what do you mean?
Yeah, it's
I get it.
it's things you would wear on dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not true because I don't go on dates. So, so touche, idiot.
Yeah. Well,
Got me,
fuck.
got
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. You got me.
Well, there you go. Great. So he sees an explosion and he decides that that is more important in this moment. It's his time to shine as Spider-Man.
Right. Which also, can I just say, by the way, very convenient that he just so happened to be up on that roof in that moment to witness that like. If he had just still been on the ground or had gone inside or what, it's like this movie literally wouldn't happen. Like it's like because like no
But it
one knew this
did.
was going
But, yeah,
on.
but it did though.
But it did happen that
I know,
way.
but like, but my point is that like with this alien weapon technology shit that's like being sold, like it's all just flying so far under the radar until it just like gets sort of happened upon by Peter Parker in this moment. It's like, and it's like the gravity of like gigantic pulsating explosions happening in upstate New York is just like being completely sort of brushed over by everyone else. And it's like they've been selling these weapons, but this is like the only time it's happening. And then they sort of like try to say it with a line where they're like, we told you not to shoot those out there. But it's like, where have all the other weapons been going that they've been selling? Like, and it is this like the first, you know, I don't know, whatever the fuck. Point is, again, it just felt like it was like, oh shit, like right place, right time. All the stars are just aligning for this thing to be happening, even though it's been going on for 8 years, you know?
I mean, you could say
Yeah.
that about like the inception of Peter Parker turning into Spider-Man too. Like he just casually
happened to
walks
be-
into like
yeah.
a lab, and then they happen to be genetically mutating spiders, and it happens to like get out and bite him instead of anybody else.
Yeah,
and-
I understand what you're saying, but that's not exactly what I mean. I mean more in the sense that like these weapons that and this technology, like it sort of has larger consequences to the entire sort of ecosystem that they're being sold around, and it's like they've only happened in the presence of Peter Parker up till now, because it's like though he sees one instance of it at the bank, and he
But we
sees
don't
one
know that for
instance-
sure. What we know for sure is that this was the one time that got the attention of Spider-Man, which then got the attention of Vulture.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, okay,
they could have
that's
shot
fair.
it off before, right? Like, and if nobody noticed, except for the people they were selling it to, and Spider-Man never got involved, then Vulture would have never gotten involved. So, like, yeah, that's the way I see it.
Okay.
Is
yeah.
yes, it was the first time that they shot it off. That Spider-Man caught it. That caused Vulture to realize that they were being trailed.
Sure, I get that. I just think that it's like, you know, if the weapons that they're selling produce explosions like that, it's just weird to me that there's like no evidence of any of it ever at any point other than the fact that Spider-Man has sort of stumbled into this ring. And then, you know, he just so happens to sort of stumble into it twice, like right place, right time. Because, like, one is next to his house and one just so happens to be at this party that he's at.
Well,
but, I mean, yeah.
there's
you're-
got to be a first time for everything, right? And
Sure,
if
yeah.
any of the Avengers are going to catch it, it's going to be the one that's the friendly neighborhood one.
Yeah, hey, fair enough.
That's a point for Dan. I'll take it. Thank you so
I-
much.
I don't think so. I just don't feel
I'll
strongly
take it.
enough about it to continue.
Heyo.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Good job, me.
It's weird pacing for me, but
Keep up the
you
good
know,
work, me.
It's a movie.
This is where we're going to catch Donald Glover's character for the first time.
Yep.
Who is
totally forgot
Aaron
he was in this
Davis. What's that?
I totally forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because of we actually talked about this for just a moment when we went over Doctor Strange. Unfortunately, Donald Glover's character of Aaron Davis is also another character that does not get any payoff in the next two movies.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because Aaron Davis is one small step away from Miles Morales.
Yeah.
And, we'll see. We get a little nod to a potential Miles Morales thing in No Way Home, the third Spider-Man movie, but we still have not heard the name or had any inclination that character is going to enter the MCU anytime soon. So we'll see. He confronts them and chases down the van. What's that now?
I was going to say, why does Aaron Davis always, like, I don't know enough about the character, like, from the comic books or anything. The only Aaron Davis I know is Prowler in Into the Spider-Verse, which is a completely different
This is the same one.
Yeah, I get that. But, like, why does he in this movie seem like he's 24/7 stoned out of his mind and, like, doing just, like, petty criminal theft stuff? Like,
because I think they're taking the same approach as Peter and Aunt May in doing younger versions of all these characters. This is not the Aaron Davis that we see in across the Spider-Verse or even in the Spider-Man video game or any of those. That is a much older. In fact, I would even bet to guess if we were to go into the Miles Morales storyline right now, based on where this current movie takes place, I would bet that his father is still alive. Like, that's the point in the MCU that I would believe that Miles Morales is in right now. He's way younger because he's already younger than Peter in all the stories anyways. Right. So we're talking about a very early timeline for Miles, which I would bet he's probably 7, 8 years old. Like, he's already way younger than Peter, and Peter's 15 or 16 in this movie, right?
Yeah, he's 15.
Yeah. So anyways, that's
I
the
just
way I
didn't
view
know if that was like a point of his character, was that he was just like some dope fiend, like just.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they
pothead.
necessarily say that, but I get what you're saying for sure. Well, during the escape of the van here, as he's chasing him down, they're using the alien weapons to try to take down Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I'll say too, just jump in here. This was another part of the movie that I actually liked. Again, it's another suspension of disbelief style thing, but like just sort of the raw, destructive nature of a guy with superpowers who hasn't totally figured out how to control them is fun, because you see that sort of in larger scale situations, like, in some of the Avengers movie, it's like, what happens when superheroes are unleashed on a city, but like what happens when just like one really strong, really fast guy is like clamoring to chase a truck and just doesn't care about collateral damage, and you sort of get that answered because he fucking destroys everything. Like, he's just barreling through fences,
backyards,
just destroying gutters and like shingles on roofs and cars. Like, he's just leaving web everywhere. Like, it's like, and again, it sort of goes into the original thing that I was saying, where it's like, sort of a character trying to come to terms with the power and like learn how to do it and whatever. Because later iterations of Spider-Man, I don't think that you would see it be as sloppy or as destructive or as whatever as this, as he starts to begin to, come into his own. But again, this is a very good illustration of a character that has not quite come to terms with all of their power yet, and is still sort of clumsy in wielding it, because it just is absolutely like monumentally destructive to everything around him at all times.
Yeah, so as he's barreling through these backyards, it's very clear that this is a nod to Ferris Bueller and the scene that happens through that movie. And they also play a clip of it as he's going through one of the houses. There's a clip of that same Ferris Bueller scene happening on the TV of one of those houses. Two questions. One, did you realize at first that was a Ferris Bueller thing? And number two, do you think it was too much to put in a clip from Ferris Bueller from that part on the TV of one of the households?
Yeah, I've never seen that movie, so
wow,
I don't
really?
know.
Okay.
So
wow.
I don't think I explicitly got it, but a lot of the movie feels like it's referenced from that era, even
Yeah,
down to how Peter Parker sounds. Like it's
sure,
just like that era of movie. So, but I don't know. I don't think it's too much. It's like pretty easy to miss if you're not really
sure.
looking out for it.
Yeah, and I guess some people have never seen Ferris Bueller. Apparently, there you go.
Here I am.
Yeah, and then Vulture finally shows up, and this is where Spider-Man gets his introduction to Vulture,
Which
and
is like
lifts
a
him
fucking
straight up.
badass introduction. Like, again, dude, just like I sort of like because like it's like okay, again, I said it at the top. Genuinely, I actually really didn't like this movie very much for a myriad of reasons. But,
I mean, you've complimented it a lot for not
Yeah.
liking it so far. I'm just
Well,
saying.
yeah.
Well, it's because he's
because-
been suppressing all the nitpicks.
Yeah, because
I don't know
mean,
about
like
that, but-
literally, we've blown past a lot of minor things that aren't even maybe necessarily worth bringing up. But like, or maybe they are. Who the fuck knows? Maybe maybe
if they aren't worth
maybe the next podcast we do, I will make it a point to tell you every single nitpick I have with every single scene we discuss, and then we'll see what that's like, and we'll listen back to this one, and then we'll listen to that one, and we'll decide the format. But here's what I'll say, is that I thought that Vulture was a cool character because it sort of does this juxtaposition thing of this like goofy sort of like childish Peter Parker who is, sort of comical and wacky and lighthearted, and then it just like thrusts raw reality and violence on top of that, and
Yep.
it like and it kind of illustrates what Tony is talking about, because
Yeah.
Tony's like, you're not ready because some of these fucking dudes will just like kill you, like go get cats or whatever out of trees, like. And his first time coming toe to toe with sort of an entity that's even larger, he literally would have killed him. Like it's like you're actually watching Peter Parker's death, if not for the fact that Iron Man bails him out. But if Iron Man didn't bail him out, he would have died. Like that. So he's essentially killed by Vulture. It's just he's not, because he ends up being saved. But without the save, that would have been the end of the movie, And so again, it illustrates the point well, where it's it's going from very low stakes to very high stakes, and very high stakes that are sort of catastrophic, It's like, again, because this thing's actually trying to kill you, as opposed to a carjacker that's just trying to get away or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the start of like the whole theme about whether or not Peter can be special as Spider-Man on his own without being under the shadow of Iron Man. Like, who is Spider-Man without Iron Man's help at this point in his story? And it's not something that like has never been said before. But it's one of the reasons that I ended up not liking this movie as much as I thought I did initially, was because so much of Spider-Man was under the shadow of Iron Man in this movie, and he doesn't, by the time he like has that self-realization moment, the movie is over, and we don't really get to see Spider-Man be Spider-Man for very long in this movie. It's more of like him growing into the role, and that's kind of like what I missed from this movie, was him actually being in the role of Spider-Man.
Well, and I think that's kind of like my thing too, is that it's like Spider-Man doesn't really affect anything in this movie, like really, like, because I mean, he even he just makes issues, and if he had just like left alone, Tony would have handled it anyway, like as is sort of shown later in the movie. So it's like, again, so the whole point is the self-actualization of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's like, who gives a shit, because you never see it anyway. All you see is this long build-up to this aha moment and then credits roll, and I don't care at that point.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think I agree, because the whole idea here is that he is bringing to light something that only the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man would have realized, right? When the initial gun gets shot off that Spider-Man sees, Tony never sees that, right? The Avengers never see that. Happy isn't aware of it. It's only because of him that that's brought to light. And that continues until your point, totally, where Tony believes him and brings the FBI onto the Staten Island ferry. That part, 100%. But we only get there because of Spider-Man's persistence to show that this is a problem.
Okay. Counterpoint, though, is so the biggest stakes that happen in this movie, because like up until this point, Vulture has been dealing in the shadows for like 8 years now, and nothing big has really come out of it. And we can kind of assume that if Peter Parker never backed him into a corner, he would have just continued to go about it under the shadow, and he would have never set his sights on Tony Stark's shipment of like all the Stark
they were
stuff.
continuously stepping up their game. They weren't ever going to be happy just as is. They were constantly stepping up what they were doing, and it was clear because, again, first they were just selling alien tech, then they were building some minor things, and then they wanted more tech, and they needed constantly more tech, right? Because the idea was they were running out of alien tech.
Yeah, but see, I'll say that like I feel like because the little assistant guy to the Vulture kept saying like, oh yeah, there's this like really big job that's coming up, we could do it, and then the Vulture keeps saying, no dude, we're not doing that, we're not going to, like, we're not in a position that we need to make that Hail Mary, right? So he says like, no, we don't need to do that until Spider-Man messes it up enough that that's his only option, and then he has to go for the Stark tech.
Yeah,
right?
and I would say too that like, while I think that you are right in a sense where it's like the stakes would have just kept getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
It's like they would have kept getting higher and higher, but then
Tony
Iron
Stark
Man
would have
just done something about it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like Spider-Man
it depends
just does
on
nothing really.
It depends on how high the stakes would have gotten, how good the tech would have been by the time they got there.
Yeah.
If the Vulture had kept going for another 4 years and then been as strong as, like, for example, in your favorite Iron Man 2, when the guy builds his own arc reactor because he wears glasses, so we know he's smart.
So we know he's like a smart guy. Yeah, totally.
Right. That is the advancement they were able to make with the technology they had at that moment in time. Well, if Vulture and his team kept growing, maybe it wouldn't have been within the 2-month period month period this movie takes place in, but it would have happened 3 years down the line where they would have already now been ready to take on Tony Stark, right? So I don't know. I think that he does have an impact in this movie, and it's made clear by the fact that he brings this to light before it gets to that point.
I don't agree, but I see what you're saying.
At this point.
I'm just saying, if Spider-Man didn't bring it to light, they would have continued this for the next 4 years. More people would have had alien technology in their hands. That would have been a thing, right? There would have been more alien tech, more guns. That would have been harder to find distribution, or the source of the distribution, as more and more and more people take hold of it. Just like Heisenberg and Breaking Bad, you had so many points of people selling the meth that it was difficult to trace that back to Heisenberg. I think Vulture would have been the same kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, great.
Maybe.
Yeah, all right, we are now 13 minutes into this movie, and all right. So, so to your point, Vulture takes him all the way up into the air, drops him. The parachute pulls him out of Vulture's grasp and throws him straight into the water.
Vulture presumably would have taken him even higher and presumably dropped him somewhere that wasn't just water, you know?
Yeah, I would assume that he thought that maybe Spider-Man didn't have a parachute built into his suit.
Right,
maybe, you know.
Well, and he, like, you know, he's very surprised when the parachute goes off.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, shit.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also
where
sort of another thematic thing of him living under the shadow of, you know, Iron Man 2, because it's like, even like he's protected by something that was a safety in his suit that he didn't even know was in there, which is like another big theme that pops up.
Just just to like further expand before we get into, because like this is like the only time that's going to be appropriate, I think, throughout the entire until the end. But like I like the idea that they replaced his origin story with a more metaphorical origin story of him coming into Spider-Man rather than him getting his powers and becoming Spider-Man. And I don't think I would have had as much of a problem with it, because assuming that we get a sequel where Spider-Man is more in his element and we get like a more standard type of Spider-Man movie, but then Far From Home comes out and it's not that at all, and it is more dealing with MCU Avengers shit, spoilers, and we don't really get to see Spider-Man be like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
But
even in the third
he's
movie,
not, though, because he's not. Like, the thing is he's still in high school. Like, he's just coming out of high school from Far From Home. Like, he's still a kid. The whole point is to continue that story.
I'm not saying it's like, I'm just saying it's not to my taste, because I want the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But in the trilogy of the Spider-Man in the MCU, we don't get any of it until like we get the hints that, okay, it's starting after the third movie, and then we haven't seen anything.
Sure.
So
yeah, well, I think that was the point of this trilogy, and we'll see if we get more of it after this. I mean, we don't know whether Tom's going to come back. Anyways, that's many movies from now, which, you know, I don't know that we'll ever get to that. But yeah, so we find out Tony isn't actually there. He sends his suit to save Peter in this moment where he's telling him he needs to back off. He needs to let the adults handle this one, and he needs to stick to the smaller stuff. Yep. Which I think we've dove into the meaning behind that quite a lot. We do get to see Vulture go back in a very angry fashion. Also, the little details in these moments where Vulture's flying back in and his wings like hit the fucking top of the warehouse as he's coming back into, you can just tell like he's very upset in this moment. That,
yeah, well, and you know, to kind of expand a little bit too, I know I'm like, you know, it's like, but like on why I like Vulture as a character, it's like there's nothing cartoonish about Vulture. It's it's really aggressive, and it's really violent, and it's really scary. That's Vulture's thing. Like, even, you know, we're talking about like Iron Man 2, like there, like even like, you know, like Whiplash, it's like that's cartoonish. There's something inherently there's something inherently goofy.
It was
about
the glasses.
That. It was probably the glasses, yeah. The
I think it was just the actor, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, But even like, you know, in like even Ultron, right? Like Ultron's like kind of a cartoonish villain, like, you know, and even him, you know, he had like raw aggression and whatever. But it's like, I think that a thing that a lot of the Marvel movies do with their villains, and it makes sense because it's like based on comic book characters, but it's like, you know, they're sort of like, they're a little over the top, they're a little, you know, whatever, and but again, I think the thing that like sold Vulture as just like a great villain is that it's like he's just like he's not like he is over the top because he's flying around a metal fucking suit, right? So it is a comic book thing, but like his motivations aren't really over the top. His personality isn't even really that over the top. And when he like needs to do something, he's just going for like ruthless efficiency. Like, it's like when he's trying to kill Spider-Man, it's like you really feel like he is trying to kill Spider-Man. Like, it's like, again, he's like a scary, violent guy, like, and it sort of separates it out from like, you know, like a Red Skull monologue, right? Like, he's not like a Red Skull monologue type dude. He's like a, you know, fucking take you in the air and throw you on the ground and kill you kind of dude. And they sell it really well. And then, you know, you even see that in this scene, getting back into the movie, when he just like straight up just kills a guy, you know, like he's just like, well, fuck you, you're dead, you know. Again, efficiency, like
the OG shotgun.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing that kind of leads you to realizing this is also a Sony movie is they're clearly trying to set up a lot of paths here to go into future movies. because Shocker is, again, yet another Spider-Man villain from the comics. We also see Michael Mando, who's an actor. He plays what we find to be Scorpion, who would also be a future Spider-Man villain. We get Aaron Davis, who's the Prowler. We're getting a lot of these like things that you would normally do individually in movies,
right,
all thrown into this movie.
Totally.
Right. And I think that is the Sony influence side of this, because MCU, Disney doesn't pick up on any of those things after this. They don't do Shocker. They don't do Scorpion. They don't do Aaron Davis. They don't use Donald Glover again. Like, I think this is, again, kind of Sony's influence, but also trying to make themselves more stable so that they can continue to sell Disney more things as they continue through the MCU.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So we get one Shocker, and then he gets killed, and then now we have a new Shocker. So that's now the real Shocker in this movie.
Dude, Shocker always just gets taken out so quickly in like every single Spider-Man issue and video game. Like, poor guy.
Yeah, this is a nice touch here for sure. This is where we get to see Peter taking apart the alien tech in the woodshop class, which they cause a little panic there, which causes Shocker and another one of the goons to come to the high school.
This is another moment where I'll point out we get this weird fucking edit where it's like the friend, what the fuck is that guy's name?
Ned,
yeah. Ned in a hallway, like looking like back and forth, and then like kind of like jumping behind a wall, where this was totally recorded after the fact, and it's just another like it's like slammed in the middle. It's like weird, like the lighting's not the same. It's like this happened later. They like re-recorded this to like put it's like, and it's quick, but it's just another example of like one of those scenes in the movies where I was like, that's weird that's in there, and then we just sort of keep going. But anyway,
no, sure, I actually kind of noticed that myself. So I'm kind of in agreement with you there. The clunkiness of Ned going behind the wall was another thing I noticed. And so they end up putting a tracker on Shocker and the other goon, and they track them throughout the night and realize they're going to be in Maryland, which is close enough to the Washington, D.C. trip that the science team is going to take. So Peter's now going to utilize that to get himself closer to where the technology is heading.
Right. And then we also get like a strange sort of flip where it's like, is Peter like Trivia Alpha or is he like Penis Parker? Because they're like, oh, we can't do this without Peter. So then they just like let him back on. And now like everybody's like kind of cool with him again. And they're just like, Peter, he's the fucking guy, you know. But then they were all like at a party calling him Penis Parker like yesterday. You know, and it's like,
I think that's just Flash.
Yeah, that was because you had the DJ of the party with the mic.
But there's like a scene where Flash is like, when I say penis, you say Parker.
Yeah, when
penis.
he's the
like,
DJ with a mic. You can get any crowd to say anything when you have a mic.
Yeah.
Like,
is that how that works?
Yeah. When I say penis, you say Christian. Ready? Penis.
Okay. Christian.
Fuck.
Okay. Well,
damn it. All
yeah.
right, well,
see, it worked. I told you every time.
But again, I'm just saying that it's like he's been sort of like established as this like bullied loser, and then
I don't think he's bullied. I think he has one bully, and nobody else cares about him.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just felt like the dynamic with the trivia group in particular is one where he was sort of on the bottom rung and everyone was kind of fed up with his shit. And then he shows up at the last moment after, like, you know, dramatically saying that he wasn't going to go. And there's like, yeah, come on, we need you. And then he's like top dog again. For like it's like the power dynamic shifts with Peter, but just for this one part until he doesn't show up again, and then he's like back on the bottom afterwards, and it was just this like weird shift in how everyone was treating him.
Yeah. Well, we now get to see some of their actual smartness here, because this is where they're going to hack into the suit to remove the tracker from it, so that once now that Peter's in DC, he's going to want to track down that tracker that he placed on the goons. And so they find out that there's a training wheels protocol on the suit, which disables a significant amount of the functionality of the suit itself, which Ned definitely has the skills to remove.
Yeah, of course he does.
From the
not
suit.
encrypted
Yeah, he can.
at all.
Yeah, he can absolutely just turn off this piece of Stark tech.
Yeah, I mean, they have access to the suit, and so is it that crazy? I mean, yeah, it is crazy.
Yes, it is.
All right, it is. I'm not going to defend it. It's fine.
That is insane.
So anyways, he's now utilizing some of these new suit options as he goes to investigate the van that he finds. And so his AI is kind of telling him about the different features. He has different web shooting abilities now. He can do rapid fire shots. He can taser shots.
Out that before this happens, we get another weird dynamic shift, and we don't have to dwell on it for very long, but I just want to call it out. Where before he goes to find this van, he runs into Liz, his crush Liz, and she's like all shy around him. She's like, because she likes him, and it's like. It's just weird because that's like not really what was happening at the party when they like met at the party. Like she wasn't like being all like giddy and like having a crush on him. She was just being normal. And then like, and then he like leaves the party and like, doesn't really explain himself. And then he like fucks over the trivia group only to then in the last minute cut. And now she's like into him and like acting all like just giddy and like, I have a crush on you. Like it's like her character's inconsistent. It was just weird. I was like, what the fuck? That's not your relationship as has been established throughout the movie up until literally right now, where I guess that is your relationship. But it was strange that that happened.
They definitely make it very ambiguous in like such a big like spectrum of ambiguity that you don't really know what she thinks about him, because on one side you could see her not really caring about him, and the other side you could see her like, oh yeah, she has a crush on him totally. And then it's weird that she gives him that much leniency too, like ended up saying yes to going out with him to homecoming dance later.
Right.
It's like I didn't think that you like, I thought that he was like being annoying to you by like causing so many issues.
Right. And he was. It's like his Pepper. It's like two-dimensional lady character that acts as a vehicle for him to be able to do things. Like, but she doesn't really have any substance. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So then they find the van. So we're back. I just wanted to call that out.
Sure.
And something fun that I will say as he's going through the various things that his suit can do is that we get now introduced to Marvel canon that suit has a canon kill mode on it, which I enjoyed. He just sort of can kill people with his kill mode, and I wonder if we'll see that again.
I don't know. Maybe we will see it in the future.
That'd be fun.
Maybe it will be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Pausing 1 second here. I am about 2 pages through my notes. I've got about a page and a half left, and we are an hour.
Yeah, but the
30.
intro was really long. So, yeah.
Like an hour 25, hour 30 minutes in. So,
yes, that's fine.
just as a heads up.
Yes,
okay.
So we'll probably have another hour, and then it'll be
just pushing it through.
Classic 2.5 hour long Cape Shit episode. I have
easy peasy. Okay, cool. Let me back up here. Yes. So, he does activate instant kill mode for a second there before turning it off. Maybe we'll see something like that in the future. And we get to see a bunch of different web options, which I don't think we really explore much actually in the future, but it seems like I actually forgot that was a thing that he could do, which was change up his web shooters and do different options like this, because this is really cool. This is kind of like the Spiderman game that we've talked about a few times on PlayStation, which you have different types of webs and things and gadgets. There was actually a lot of gadget use in this one as well, which I forgot about. I liked seeing some of the web gadgets and stuff.
Yeah.
And so Vulture appears. They're going after the convoy now, and they're looking to steal the alien tech out of the convoy, which they've clearly done in the past. This is not the first time that they've stolen alien tech from the damage control group. And Spider-Man's gonna try to stop them this time from doing that.
Yeah, I will say that was weird to me that he wouldn't just like fuck with the wings, because the dude like drops into the thing and Peter shows up and like the wings are just like right there. It's like just like shoot a little web on him, my guy. It's like, and there's just like a few points in the movie where it's like his one thing is the thing Peter never thinks to do anything about.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of it from Peter's perspective. He hops on that truck. He does see the wings, but what he sees that's significantly more interesting is some alien tech that allows you to go through matter to get into this truck, which he immediately, when he lands on it, he goes, whoa, like a matter, blah, blah, whatever the fuck he says, scientific words, right? So, like, he did get distracted. He's 15 years old. Like, I don't know. I thought it was fine.
But just shoot a little web.
Well, you know, when you're Spider-Man,
really
you can.
Yeah, he's very bad at prioritizing. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Anyways, I like this part because I forgot that this is how he ends up, but this is where he gets in there and then he tries to get out and he knocks himself out when he jumps back up.
Yeah.
It's a nicer way than like Vulture slamming him with his wing and like knocking him out or something. This was more of a Spider-Man way to end up in this situation.
Yeah, totally. Well, because Vulture would have just killed him if he had like if he had like a concussed Peter Parker at his disposal in that moment, so it's like, so Vulture couldn't have really dealt with him like that. Like, you had to have some way to separate the two of them, because if you had an unconscious Peter at the feet of a Vulture, then he would have just died.
Yeah, for sure. And then he ends up in the bunker, which is owned by Damage Control. It's a deep storage vault. It's completely locked down, and he is stuck here for the night. And so he builds a little web hammock that he can lay on there as he's talking to his AI, which he names Karen, which I'm guessing this was before the uprising of using Karen as
that was before
negative
we
term.
As a society determined that it was not okay to be called Karen.
Yeah, exactly. I liked the look, by the way, of his yellow jacket on as he was hanging out in this storage, which we find out is for like 37 minutes before it cuts to him trying to escape. But him in the yellow jacket was like a part of the entire advertising campaign for this movie. The poster had him with that on, and toys were made with that on. Like, this was like the look of him, like showing that he's a teenager who's Spider-Man, who's like growing into this role. That was kind of the way they signified this through the advertising of this movie.
Yeah, totally. Around this point that we come to find that the glowing stone is in fact not an infinity stone, but it is a bomb.
Which nobody thought it was an infinity stone, so
I
that's
thought it
fine.
could have been. I was confused, dude. I'm just saying.
No,
you're like, okay, everything that's like a glowing stone is a fucking infinity stone. Other than
we
this
saw a
one
bunch of these laying around. There weren't 100 purple infinity stones.
How do I know? Maybe you have to put them all together to make the purple infinity stone.
They all mesh into one, and they combine all their energies.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe that's how the purple infinity stone works, Dan.
Well, it's a good thing now we realize that it wasn't an infinity stone.
Yeah, I know that would have been inconvenient. That probably would have caused a little bit more than okay. And I was saying this. We're not even there yet. So whatever the fuck. So they're like, okay, don't put radiation on it. That's bad. That triggers it to explode. And wouldn't you know, it goes through an X-ray machine just as Peter is getting that information. Which isn't that convenient timing for that?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, hey, and also in my notes right here, spoiler alert, I do have notes. A thought dawned on me. I wrote down, I wonder if the reveal is going to be like Vulture is actually Liz's dad. Anyway.
No, come on. Yeah, did you really write that?
Yeah. You can go look at my notes. Yes, I really did write that. This is around the point where that dawned on me.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'll admit it. I don't care. I didn't see it coming when I watched it in theaters the first time.
Word.
When I watched it in theaters, I remember that moment very specifically because we're a little behind of where this is, but when he opens the door to go to Homecoming and it's Vulture standing there at the doorway.
Yeah. I mean, let's address the elephant in the room.
Surprised.
Liz is black. and the
Well,
Vulture is not.
yeah.
So
Sure.
you see Vulture open the door to Liz's home, and immediately I'm confused, and I'm like, what like why is he there, right? But then
Wait, did you actually like not put the dad part
Well,
together in that
I put the
moment?
dad part together when he opened the door. Like,
Right.
I got that part at least.
Well, no,
but like,
because like I see Michael Keaton standing in the door, smiling menacingly, and I'm like, oh no, he broke into their home.
he killed Liz and her family.
That was my initial.
Now that
watch
would have
through,
been
yeah.
a crazy
It
twist.
was a crazy twist for me.
Yeah. But no, yeah, yes, this was around this point where I was like, yeah, because I just thought about it for half a
Well,
second.
yeah,
and I
it's
was
just like a. It's
was like,
like
he's
the
like-
twist
he's like-
villain. would
right,
be.
and I'm like, okay, well, with all of the parts of the story that we have, we know Liz has a dad, she's mentioned him, and we know Vulture has a kid, he's mentioned that, and we also know that his wife doesn't know what he does, so we know that. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I put all of those things together, we get the Vulture being Liz's father, and turns out I was right. Spoiler alert, but I just saw that in my notes here, and I just wanted to,
Yeah, I still
you know.
don't believe you, but that's fine. I'll let you have this. Don't worry.
Oh well, you're gonna like a part that's coming up next, but we'll get there. I'm going to remind you that you said that, and then I have a segment a little later that I think you're gonna like.
Okay.
But,
Okay. Well, the thing I did like here is that when Peter finally does break out of the vault, which I think they just open it, so I don't actually think he breaks out, but I don't remember exactly what happened there in that moment, that he doesn't make it back, that they win without him. I like that this wasn't like one of the standard, like, oh, I made it at the last second and then
Right.
we won the decathlon, whatever it was.
right, like
I like
fundamentally,
that.
they actually didn't really need him.
Yeah. I like that. I like that it was like, no, you missed out and that's it. Like, you don't get to just make this better in this moment. It kind of pushed his hero story along. We also get the first reference to Zendaya's character's first name, which is Michelle, which is another kind of a moment to throw off the audience and thinking, oh, this isn't MJ. Don't even worry about it. This is Michelle. So to your point, Ned has the Chitauri alien device that is not an Infinity Stone, and it is a bomb.
Right.
And with radiation, it's going to go off, and they are now in the Washington Monument in an elevator going up to the top.
With great power comes great radiation explosions. And then
Yeah,
he
that's
looks
the
at
line.
he looks at the camera and he winks.
Were you disappointed that line wasn't in this movie?
What are you talking about? He says the line right there.
Okay.
Yeah. I was watching
Yep.
the director's cut.
Yeah, I know you were. But this is where Spider-Man is going to try to get up to the top of the Washington Monument. And again, this is kind of the point I made, a thing I pointed out earlier, which is like
Right, okay,
he's
hold on.
crawling
but
up the
yeah, but
entire
also,
way.
Really quick, the bomb goes off. It was like, I fucking hated this bomb explosion. Like, I'm like, oh, fuck, the bomb's going to go off. And it's like on him. That's probably going to be an issue, right? Because I'm just picturing an explosion. And then it's like, we get these like weird beams of light that just sort of shoot up towards the sky, and then that's our bomb explosion,
the
and now the
same-
elevator's fucked.
It's the same power source that the bank robbers used at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So like it stands to reason that it would shoot out energy in the same way that the bank robbers gun did.
Yeah, meaning none of those burnt Spider-Man, none of them like broke his suit. They were just gravity.
No, because remember
No, the other one, the one that seared through
Yeah.
the dude's deli.
exactly the way that it went off in the monument, it happened in the bank and it went through the deli. Like there
Was it was it purple?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
it
the
was.
beam was totally
Yeah.
purple. Yeah,
Well, it didn't kill the deli owner, right?
That's
the
true. Or
the
the
shop
cast
owner. So maybe
yeah.
it doesn't work on human flesh.
Yeah,
there you go.
maybe.
That's
I mean, again, I was just like, that's like what the fuck does this thing even do? It's just dumb. But whatever.
It's just a laser cutter.
Yeah, it's like a laser, I guess. But then it's
an
like,
energy bomb.
yeah, but it's like, why
I
did it
don't
go
know.
up? I don't fucking know. Whatever. Like, yeah, like, Like, man, any other direction, and that would have been
Yeah, it
bad
didn't
for
at
them.
least like slice off someone's toe, you know?
Right.
Like it could have done something to someone in
but-
the
Yeah.
elevator.
But yeah, but him going up is cool. You know, whatever. I actually like the scene Spider-Man. Like, I think when this movie just like lets Spider-Man do Spider-Man shit, it's almost sort of like a less egregious example, like I was sort of saying in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 a little bit, and this is like way better than that was in many ways. But it's like when they just like let Spider-Man do cool Spider-Man shit, and they let Vulture do cool Vulture shit, that's when I liked this movie the most. That's really when it like shined to me. It's like all the character development, not that big a fan of. The characters themselves, not a huge fan of. The plot was serviceable, I suppose, but also for all the reasons I mentioned earlier that I won't get back into again, I'm just like, it seems like it really wasn't that impactful. But like here, we like Spider-Man climbing up the Washington Monument. It's just a classic Spider-Man moment. You know, it's like that's just Spider-Man doing Spider-Man shit, and that was cool. That was a fun sequence of events.
Yeah, I think we also realize here too that Spider-Man is clearly not known yet through the world. Like, you know, even when we've seen clips of him previously, it's been like the neighborhood Spider-Man. Like it's this guy who's saving local people from crime and issues. And now he's at the top of the Washington Monument. And he's got like 4 helicopters with guns pointing at him, like, get off the monument, like, you're, you know, what are you doing here? They're all about to shoot Spider-Man.
Right.
And so clearly he's obviously at this point not an Avenger, not well known, very early into his Spider-Man career.
Yeah. And then even, you know, he's trying to like kick down the bomb glass. He can't, or the reinforced glass, or whatever, can't do it. He does the cool jump over the helicopter and then uses the momentum of the helicopter to swing in and go grab everyone. That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was sweet. And of course, for some reason, Liz is the last person on the elevator.
Yep.
So he saves everyone, and then Liz falls down the elevator shaft, and he saves her, which is
Classic.
good thing he didn't. Yeah, classic Spider-Man thing, saving a person from a some type of long falling shaft, whether it's a clock tower or an elevator shaft. This is probably one of 5 times we see this same kind of thing from Spider-Man. So
sense.
Classic Spider-Man
employs a lot
moment.
of verticality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I also like
thank you
the-
for defending Spider-Man.
I also
You're
like the
welcome.
joke.
I
where-
like Spider-Man, dude. By the
Yeah,
No, I know.
For what it's worth, Spider-Man is probably my favorite Marvel. I know that that's like the most basic ass normie
It
take
is.
a human can
It
have,
is.
but I like
I
Spider-Man.
mean, there's a reason that Spider-Man is so popular. But
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I like the joke because he's been telling Karen about his crush on Liz, and so when he finally saves Liz, Karen's like trying to push him, like, this is the moment.
This is
like,
your chance.
You gotta kiss her now, and he like falls off. I thought that was like a really good way to get him out of the scene without it being like weird. Him just like standing there awkwardly.
Yeah.
With all the people that
This
he just
was-
saved.
It was also a reference to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, right? Because he's upside
he's
down.
upside down.
She's standing right there. It's like, oh, this is gonna be a classic Tobey moment, but does not
Yeah,
end up happening.
Here's a thing after this that might sound like a nitpick, but I don't actually think it is. How the fuck did Peter get back?
How did he get back from what?
From like the Washington Monument debacle.
On the bus?
No, but he didn't, because then when he like runs into people later, they're like, hey, I know that like I wasn't there for you and you know what, I'm really sorry I couldn't come through in the decathlon thing. They're like, oh, whatever. But they're having conversations about it as if they haven't had a conversation about it. And if Peter went home on the bus, wouldn't they have had like a conversation? Like Peter's just gonna show up
That's
and they're all just gonna
really
like,
nitpicky.
I don't think it is.
I think it is. I think it is.
I like it's like
I don't think that they're.
And I think it brings up a bigger issue is like if some student went on an Acadeka like trip
exactly the
and then
other
just
thing I was about to bring up.
disappeared they
Yes.
wouldn't just go about their business like on schedule. They would be freaking out.
Right. And also, it brings up something that I have not talked about at all up until this point, but it is one of the biggest marks against this movie that has been compiling up until now. But this is like it's like Peter Parker is so obviously fucking Spider-Man, it's insane. Like, and does not try to cover the tracks whatsoever. It's like every single time Peter is somewhere and then he leaves, then Spider-Man shows up, and then Spider-Man goes away, and then Peter comes back, and he's like, yeah, I guess I've just been working on this internship for Tony Stark. And we're supposed to assume that these dudes are all like smart. There's this like smart group of people, and it's like they haven't even really put it together yet. It's like, it's insane. It just keeps happening.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. But what I'll say is every person who finds out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker isn't told that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. That includes Vulture,
Right.
Aunt May, and future characters in the next movie and the movie after that all find out that Peter is Spider-Man without Peter telling them.
Yeah, sure.
And Ned too, by the way.
Okay.
Ned as well.
Right,
Right?
That seems like it has nothing to do with what I'm saying, though. Where it's like, granted,
He's saying that
But
everybody should know that it's Peter
I'm saying
Parker.
every single fucking person should understand that Peter Parker is Spider-Man at this point, because it piggybacks on my original point that then John piggybacks on with what was actually going to be my second point, but John already covered it. So, shout outs that alley-oop assist where it's like, okay, how does he get home? Right, because I'm not convinced he gets home on the bus, but whatever, fuck it. Even if we're assuming he did, his lack of presence would be so fucking felt. He is like a 15-year-old kid on a high school trip. You can't just not be in the hotel room and have Ned cover for, like, what the fuck does Ned even say? Yeah, it's like, so what, and then it's like you can't not show up to the event, and then like everybody dies or is like a bomb goes off.
Sure.
Peter Parker fucking, like, Spider-Man shows up. Spider-Man like saves the day, and then as soon as Spider-Man leaves, Peter Parker is still not there. Like,
that would have all been solved with a 15-second scene, or maybe a little longer, of Ned and Peter setting up a Ferris Bueller style machine, which triggers an audio file of him being sick in bed, where he's like, hey, I'm sick, I can't come to the decathlon, like, I'm gonna stay here in the hotel room all day because I'm sick.
sure, something.
That would have solved the entirety of the problem.
Anything. Like, just give like some sort, like, because again, I'm just saying it's like these like style of things were really ultimately what led me to not like this movie as much as I maybe would have if it had been like, yeah, I don't know, like maybe a little tighter or whatever, just because it's like stuff like that like takes me out like so hard, and they just don't have a good explanation for why the fuck everyone hasn't figured out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And by everyone, I mean like everyone that he's coming into contact with. And this was like the most egregious example to me, where I'm like, if they hadn't known by then, they really should have figured it out, And
Sure.
so should everyone. Because it's like, okay, Spider-Man's this like New York thing, and then he's like suddenly absent from New York, and now he like shows up in this thing at the same time. This decathlon thing is going. It's like, I don't fucking know. Anyway, it's like that's it. I have nothing else to say about that. I just didn't like that. That stuck out to me.
Yeah, I guess the other, small leap that people would have to make would be to also assume that someone directly that you're in high school with is an actual superhero, right? This is almost kind of like, and by the way, I'm not defending all of that stuff because I actually agree with you as you make that point. I agree that a lot of it was very obvious.
Woo!
But this is also the Clark Kent Superman debate. Like, how can you not tell that Clark Kent is Superman? And I think it's also partially in the way that he carries himself. Like, you're talking about someone who's literally saving lives from people about to die in an elevator shaft from a bomb that goes off. And we're talking about taking down alien tech and all of this. And you have Peter Parker, right? Like, you're also having to internally make the jump from this 15-year-old high school kid who is a science nerd to being a actual superhero with superpowers.
Yeah,
right?
sure, but I think to your point too, because this is something you say a lot, but it's true. It's like, you also have to remember that this is like a universe where superheroes with superpowers exist, and it's a thing that happens to people,
Sure.
And so, and even beyond that, again, like if it was just this, it's like whatever. It's just like the way that this movie sets up any conflict, and it will continue to do this as it goes further, is that like Peter Parker shows up in a situation and he's here now, and then something happens and Peter Parker leaves, and then Spider-Man is just kind of hitting the scene now, and then Spider-Man's gone, and then Peter Parker re-enters. And it's just like that enough times. Yeah, and and if this was just like, your sort of standard run-of-the-mill dumb idiots, that's like what, but it's like, these guys are like supposed to be like turbo fucking genius types, it's like surely any one of them could have figured out something was up by this point. And it's weird that
Vulture does figure it out, right?
Well, yeah, but Vulture does. But Vulture's not even like Vulture's like a fucking contractor. It's like, and he can figure it out. You know what I mean? Like he's not even like winning math decathlons or whatever.
Yeah, but no. Anyway, I don't disagree with you, but I also think there's some bending to that as well.
Sure, yeah, fine.
Sure. Great.
Okay,
Moving on. All right.
Very cool.
Oh shit! All right,
Where
we're now
were we?
25 minutes into the movie. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. So now that they're actually back, which, however Peter got back, we'll leave that up in the air because we don't really know for sure.
Right.
He does tell Ned that he's never coming back because the Avengers campus is moving from Avengers Tower, which Avengers Tower is being decommissioned. And I don't think it's actually been reutilized yet, even now in Phase 4. I think Avengers Tower, there are many times we'll see it where it's just empty. And there was some rumor here that eventually Reed Richards buys the Avengers Tower, and this is where the Fantastic Four will live. But we won't know that until Phase 6 of the MCU.
Oh
so we'll see. That's like 2025, by the way.
Wait, Phase 6.
Yeah, Phase 6. The first movie of Phase 6 is going to be Fantastic Four.
Are we still in Phase 4?
Phase 4 just finished.
With
Phase 4 ended with Wakanda Forever. Phase 5 starts with Ant-Man Quantumania, which comes out next month. Anyways.
All right.
A cool franchise, guys.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for agreeing with me. He's in detention. This is where we see another Captain America video. Another Hannibal moment there as well. And so Peter just leaves. He leaves school right there within detention, which Hannibal, whatever, he doesn't care. He's not going to go after him. So now we get to see the baby monitor protocol. And this is where we see that the suit is recording literally everything that Spider-Man is doing so that Tony can keep a very close eye on him. And he uses the suit to find information on the people that were there that night with the guns deal so he could track them down further, which leads him to Aaron Davis, Donald Glover's character.
And again, credit where credit's due, the interrogation mode. Yeah. That was fun. It was a funny gag. I liked that.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that it's like no coincidence that it's like a very Batman-esque voice too. You know? Like it's like that's like a nod, like that. It's self-aware. It's funny. I thought that scene was funny.
Yeah, I thought the writing was good too. And he's like, I could obviously tell that you're a girl, dude. And he's like, I'm not a girl. I'm a boy. I'm a man. I'm a Spider-Man.
Yeah. My favorite part about that
is
is when he, like, as he's leaving, he leaves his Aaron Davis's hand attached to the car, and he's like, you deserve that. You're a criminal. Goodbye. Like
criminal. By the way, this is also it's one little quick line here, but he says, don't worry, it'll dissolve in 2 hours, which earlier I think maybe I misinterpreted, but Christian, you were mentioning like he's swinging through these backyards and he's leaving webs all over the place and this kind of stuff.
The webs dissolve, but he still is leaving a bunch of bullshit.
Sure.
He still destroyed everybody's property.
I think this has always been a question, though, even in previous Spider-Man movies, of like
what happens to the
after
web?
15 years of Spider-Man swinging through New York, are just buildings covered with webs, right? Like how do the webs get cleaned up? Is there a team that handles Spider-Man web cleanup? But in this MCU, they do, at least with this kind of throwaway line, explain that the webs go out after 2 hours or dissolve.
At this point, can I get some air horns going on through here?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much. Hey, what's up, everyone? We're back with another exciting edition of Allison's Thoughts.
My favorite part of the podcast.
So I asked Allison what her thoughts were at this point, and I wrote down what she said verbatim. So here it is.
Here we go.
So I don't remember the Avengers or whatever movie this was following. I think I fell asleep. However, I can kind of follow along and still enjoy it. I think this is one of the better movies so far that I've watched. It's fun and lighthearted, even though I've seen the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man back in the day. Thumbs up. I'm feeling good today. Feeling spicy.
Nice. Very good. Yeah. See, and I think that was the goal of this movie, by the way, for like non-Christian watchers.
Yes,
and when I say that, I mean Christian the person, not Christian the religion.
Yeah.
Just is that this was supposed to be a fun high school like antics movie,
and it is
right.
It accomplishes that. Sure.
Wait, hold on. Before we get to the next point, just to touch on the web thing again, one more time. Aaron Davis is stuck on his car because he's webbed to the car, and he's like, how the hell do I get out of here? I have to wait 2 hours. But then later on we see Peter confronting the Vulture, and the Vulture has his hand trapped, but he just takes a knife and cuts it open and it's fine. So like, how strong are the webs? Can you just take a knife and cut his webs? Is it that flimsy? It just seems a little inconsistent.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Aaron Davis had a knife on him and tried to cut the webs off or not.
Yeah, there's no way Aaron Davis didn't have a knife on him, you know?
Wow. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he only had a gun and he wasn't going to shoot his hand off.
It's too bad he didn't have Loki's, magical knife belt.
Loki's rod? Yeah, that would have been nice.
That would have been
No,
tight,
Loki's
dude.
rod doesn't work on it. Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't work on a web.
Yeah.
Yo, we also get Nacho Varga, dude. I didn't know he was in this. Fuck yeah.
This is Michael
Shout outs.
Mando.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So this is who they set up to be Scorpion in the MCU at the end credit scene there with Vulture.
Gotcha.
But again, that doesn't go anywhere. Sorry, Michael Mando, which he is a great actor. I mean, in Better Call Saul, he is amazing in that show.
Yeah, Nacho fucking ass, bro.
Yeah, a lot of people were really excited to see this actor in the MCU, but unfortunately it has not panned out yet.
We did. We saw him in the MCU.
Yeah, we saw him. He was there.
Well,
he was there.
yeah, sure. I mean, in it,
fun
though.
hijinks on ships.
Yeah, okay. Well, he didn't necessarily play a huge part of this part of the movie, but I mean, the idea here is, again, Spider-Man has gone very in depth into this, where Tony has told him to back the hell off.
Right.
And he is not backing off.
Right. Spider-Man has gone rogue. Rogue
exactly.
One. Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, that's it. Rogue.
Night Elf Rogue from World of Warcraft.
Yeah, he's gone World of Warcraft, Night Elf Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he causes a lot of problems on this ferry here at this point, which, I mean, realistically leads to some. We get the spider drone who looks for the car that has the alien tech on it.
Okay,
we get him confronting the bad guys here.
Right, but also like, yeah. So he's like doing all this shit, and he's like fucking everything up. He like jumps down. He like sees that the deal is going down. He's gonna whatever insert himself into the middle of the problem. But then like the FBI bail out, and they're like, FBI freeze, and it's like. his drone didn't see that. Like Karen didn't notice that. Like doesn't like he has like X-ray vision and shit. Like it's like one of the things on his suit would have tipped
she
him
should have
off
been
that,
like, why are all these
Yeah.
people wearing guns on their holsters?
right. Like has happened every other time in the movie that it's
Yeah.
like, and then just this one time his suit AI just inconspicuously like decides it like doesn't work now. Maybe the FBI has like special Spider-Man suit blockers that rendered his, it's just, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it didn't really make sense. It didn't really make sense. Like, it's like everything we know about his suit up till this point dictates that something would have tipped him off that there's all these people here, and then he's like surprised by them. It's like, what the fuck? Like, why? I don't understand why that happened.
And then also, like, Tony calls him at this point, and he's like, wait, where are you? And it's like, you have a tracker on. Oh, wait, no. At this point, he put the tracker.
Well, he took the
he took the
Never
tracker
mind.
out.
I
Yeah.
take that back.
Yeah.
But I think would his AI care to point out non-criminals to
If there
Peter?
were that many of them who had
and they all had
weapons on
guns.
them,
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. You don't.
Yeah,
so that's a
okay,
point
so-
for me. That's a
I'm
hey,
just saying-
that's a Christian point right there.
I'm saying I don't agree or disagree with you.
Right. Well, that's still a point for me, unfortunately for you.
I'm gonna say that that's a 0.
No, I'm gonna go ahead and say that's a point for me. So moving on from there, I do, however, like how in this moment, everything's fucked. The ship's getting ripped in half. So, he's sliding on through, hitting it with the webs, trying to hold it together, and then Karen makes some kind of comment where, it's like, good job, I'm being 98% successful.
Yeah.
And he's like, what does that mean? And the ship starts, and the guy's like, Spider-Man, woo! And then the ship starts like, getting fucked, and he jumps into the middle and almost in sort of like a crucifixion of Christ-esque scene is like, willing to sacrifice himself by holding both of the sides of the boat together, only for then Tony to just come and just go whoop and just like completely fix it.
Yeah.
Which again, sort of shows that he's like living under Tony's shadow. It also kind of is my point where I'm just like, I think a lot of shit in this movie, it's like Peter just sort of makes worse. If he had just like not done anything, it would have just been tied up. Maybe that's the point. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's partially the point.
Yeah, but then he gets a little scene where him and Tony are going back and forth, having a little convo with one another.
Yeah. This is where he assumes that Tony didn't show up again like the first time when he just sent the suit in place, and then Tony walks out of the suit.
Yep.
Which I didn't catch the dubbing thing that you were talking about before.
I did, yeah.
But what I did catch very obviously in this, which was very crazy to me, is how bad the green screen was here in this moment. This like really pivotal Tony and Peter scene was terribly CGI'd.
Yeah.
I mean, where I saw it the most was in Tony's hair. Like, it was all fuzzy where his hair was, and like the points where his hair would stick out, the hair was really fuzzy. You could tell that the green screen was implemented behind him. I don't ever notice stuff like that, and this was extremely noticeable. This was like Twitch stream level noticeable.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of surprised that a scene like this was so poorly done from a visuals perspective.
It's funny that you point that out, because the part that I found was like way more minor, and it was when Spider-Man like introduces himself to the enemies on the ship in the first part, where he like flips in, and like the color grading on Spider-Man was like slightly more washed out than everything else on the ship, and that was like what ticked me off. But like, I guess I just wasn't watching as intently when Tony Stark came on.
There were definitely certain parts in this movie where I noticed that the movement of Spider-Man was clearly like replaced with a a CGI version of him, right? I mean, there were clear moments of that through it, but it wasn't enough to like take me out of it. I just like,
yeah, I think that during the Civil War thing with him jumping around the airport, that was fucking horrible. Like that was like unforgivably bad. So like any instance in this movie where it's him being CGI, I was mostly like fine with it, you know? I agree. There were like a couple instances where it was like sort of noticeable, but even then it was like I feel like they did an all right job, all things considered.
Yeah. It was pretty consistent, except for the parts where it wasn't consistent.
Right.
But,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get the classic Tony Stark utterance of, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it.
yeah. And he's like, it sounds like my dad now. Which, I mean, that's kind of Tony's role for Spider-Man through what we'll see is the rest of Phase 3 is kind of the mentor figure to Peter. And he takes a liking to Peter as well, obviously. I mean, as we go through the rest of this movie, he even wants to put him into the Avengers after all of this. So once they pull all the shit back together, he gets the suit taken away. It's all... Tony and Peter have had their conversation, which, by the way, right before they have their conversation, Vulture tells his lackey to make the high altitude seal.
Right.
That's the moment where this happens, which, by the way, one thing you haven't mentioned, which I figured you might have, which I'm going to mention now, is I thought they mentioned that stupid seal too much. There was like 4 times throughout this movie where they mentioned making the seal.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get it. It's going to be the thing at the end of the movie that like it is going to be part of the final, you know, heist or whatever it is. Like, I don't know. I thought they mentioned that maybe too often, but maybe I was the only one who thought that.
Maybe one too many, because they do it. So they do it twice. He says no twice, and then he brings it up on the third one. They do it then.
I thought they do it one more time besides that, but maybe I'm misremembering. I don't know. Even twice just seemed like too much to keep bringing up something that your boss already said no to.
Yeah.
Where there was no moment to trigger him asking again. Like it wasn't like he dealt with something where it would have came in handy for the previous heist. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it was only going to be developed for the one heist, right? Like this was a specific thing for a specific job, which was to raid the Quinjet at the end of the movie.
Gotcha. Well, Peter makes it home. Aunt May is pretty pissed off because he disappeared again, and Peter says that he lost the Stark internship.
Yep.
Which Tom really puts it all on the line here. Very, very sad, crying eyes. Believable, in my opinion. I thought he did really good in this scene to like show the emotional stress that he's gone through and how it's just all collapsed on him.
Sure.
I thought it was a really well acted scene, and that May's transition from anger to feeling sorry for him was a good transition in this moment.
Yeah.
And so now that he's back at school, he's living his day-to-day life. So we're kind of getting now like a montage of him just
he's sort of adjusting
being back to being
into
Peter.
being like Peter Parker. He also he back into being Penis Parker. He runs into Liz, and we get another like weird thing where like he basically like fucked them, right? Like, you know, for the competition thing, like that was shitty. And he like snubbed Liz too. So it's like he like snubbed Liz at her party, and then he bailed out on the competition thing, and then he came back to the competition thing only to bail out on it again after snubbing her once more with like the pool thing. And he's basically like, I think I might kind of like you. And she's like, I like you too. And he's like, will you go to homecoming with me? And she's like,
Hell yeah.
And also, this is a moment too where there's 2 camera angles happening. And I've been pointing this out, but it's like we keep cutting back and forth, and her head's not in the same place in between cuts multiple times. So again, weird fucking edits in this thing. Like it just, I can't help but notice that stuff.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice it at all. I don't know. But I'll believe you this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
You're welcome.
Right.
So this leads to another montage of then Peter getting ready for homecoming with
Right.
Aunt May, putting on the tie, learning to dance, all of that stuff, and getting ready for this moment before he is driven to Liz's house.
Yep.
Which is now the big reveal.
Right. Which okay, remember when I said I was gonna have a fun segment for you?
Sure.
That you were gonna eat those words because I had like a nice fun segment for you coming up later in the podcast.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, well, can I get some air horns, please? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Allison's Thoughts Round 2. Surprise
No, you
round.
can't do that. That's illegal.
A
That's
second
illegal.
Allison's Thoughts, where
I don't know, dude.
door opens up, Michael Keaton standing there, the Vulture. I had already told Allison about my Michael Keaton is Liz's father's hypothesis. This is what
Wait, so you ruined it for Allison when she could have had a great surprise?
Well,
Wow,
this is
okay.
what she had to say. How did you know? You're so smart. I
Oh,
never would have
God.
seen that
paid
coming.
actor, dude. Paid
Oh,
actor.
come on. No,
Woo!
see, it would have
Damn.
affected me. It would have affected me more. This segment would have hit harder if she said, "Oh yeah, I knew that too."
Yep. Nope.
Like if it was so obvious that I didn't catch it. So
Nope,
if this was just to inflate your
my
own
wife,
ego.
calling me smart. So
No, that's
Oh.
unfair. You married her so that she could say nice things about you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it.
doesn't count.
yeah. Well, I think it does count, and I think that that sort of proves my point that yes, no, I figured that one out relatively early in the movie.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
I did.
All right. Anyways, so so I remember this moment very clearly watching this in the theater because I didn't catch it, and I will 100% admit that. And I remember when he opened that door, that was like people gasped
Everyone was
out
just
loud.
pissing themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, all over the floor. It was real bad.
Get a mop. Get a
gotta
broom,
get a
get
bucket
But
and a mop.
man, this whole scene, even going into the car, everything about this was so well acted. I thought, like, even Tom did. I mean, you could feel his his anger, his
I will
fear.
point out though, really quick, before they get in the car, we get another weird motherfucking thing where like, you know, they're like, "Hey, let's go. Your ride awaits." And then Michael Keaton goes to pat Peter on the shoulder. And like halfway through the arm coming down pat motion, they just cut to the next scene. And it's such a weird place to cut. Because it's like, wait for him to pat or hit it before the motion starts. But there's something fucking weird happened with the edits in this movie because it was another weird ass edit where I was like, why did they choose to do it like that? That's so strange. Just let that play out for 3 more seconds. Like they obviously couldn't for some reason. But yeah, we just had another thing like that in there too. So anyway. But yes, the car scene, great scene. That was cool. Well, sort of. Liz, like, okay. And this kind of goes into what I was saying before, too, where it's like.
Liz makes the case for why he's Spider-Man,
Liz
essentially.
makes the case for why he's Spider without realizing that he's and it does not make any motherfucking sense. She like spells it out in a way where Vulture knows, but like she doesn't somehow, you know? It's like
Sure.
fuck it, and it's like for every single person in this movie, they should know, but they just don't. Other than Vulture, who just figures it out, you know, it's like whatever. I don't.
That was the most egregious moment
bad.
of
That was
that
bad,
in the
dude.
movie.
That was not
I will
good.
agree 100%. That was the most egregious moment of people knowing he's people should be knowing he's Spider-Man out of all of it. Yeah, totally agree with you.
And so they get to the thing. They're at the homecoming
To the
thing.
dance.
Yeah, and he says, "Hey, why don't you get out of the car because I'm gonna have a little
The dad talk.
Ha ha." And then Okay, so I sort of joked about like Chekhov's gun before, right? But like Chekhov's gun is essentially like a trope in a movie where it's like, if a gun is going to be introduced in the first act, it will be fired by the third act, right? Like that is what Chekhov. So in this scene they do a weird thing, and I bring that up again because she leaves the car and he pulls out a handgun and like puts his arm over but Peter never sees it and they never reference it. He never points it at him.
Wait, what do you mean Peter never sees it?
Because the angle in which I watched this scene twice, just the angle in which he pulls out the gun and has it leaning on the headrest is an angle where it would be imperceptible to Peter in the back seat. And again, I watched this scene twice.
Maybe I'm misremembering, because the way that I remember him doing it is that his hand is on the back of the passenger headrest, which would be right in front of Peter's face.
But it's a solid headrest?
On the back of the headrest. His arm is on the back.
Nope.
Hold on.
100% the gun is on the front of the headrest. He can't see it. Again, I watched the scene 2 times.
Okay, I am looking at the scene right now on YouTube.
First click. Let's go.
Hold on, we got here.
So
okay,
you see, he pulls it out. He's blocking it with his body as he pulls it out, and then he's.
You're right.
Yeah, I am.
You're right.
It's fucking weird, like because Peter.
Okay, but maybe that's not the point, though. I'm just gonna throw this in there. Maybe the point is not to threaten him with a gun, but he knows that Spider-Man is in his car, and worst case scenario, Spider-Man's gonna do some shit, and he's gonna have a gun in his hand if he does.
Yeah, sure, maybe, but then why pull it out like that? Like, he obviously has it like close enough to him. You know what I mean? Like why do like the menacing lean with the gun in the hand? It's like it was just, and then like why never reference the gun?
No. Okay, no. I have a freeze frame of him. Okay, so the first time he pulls out the gun, he kind of like puts his arm towards the headrest, and there's like this 1 second where Peter looks down, and there is an angle to where Peter can see the gun. But then
I see his eyes follow the gun. His eyes follow the. Yeah, I see it. I know exactly what you're talking about. When he pulls the gun out initially, he does pull it in front where Peter can see it, and his eyes follow it, and his face reacts to the gun.
Word. Well, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, only because I'm watching it in this moment. I didn't think about the gun being either which way, either a scare tactic or a weapon in case Spider-Man attacks him. Yeah. Like, I thought that there was a gun. I don't know. I didn't really think about it. But
it was weird. And also,
it's a good point.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I guess Vulture like has a gun, like, and then it's like, but
it's almost like the gun was for the audience in that moment, like to increase the intensity.
The funny part is,
it also probably.
Sorry, just go ahead and finish it.
It would have been weird too, like if Vulture was literally pointing a gun at a 15-year-old in this car in front of the homecoming dance.
But then why pull it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing for me is that, like, at this point, Vulture doesn't have anything except the gun. And if he was in a fight with Spider-Man without his suit, he would lose immediately.
He would lose.
Yeah.
100%, yes.
He couldn't actually be threatening to Spider-Man in this vehicle. Which is
without a gun.
Yeah. No, even with a gun, like.
But also again, it's like he doesn't like. Yeah, I don't know. They don't like reference the gun. He's not like I have a gun. Doesn't point the gun at it. It's like, and we never see another gun. Like where'd the gun? It's just like just weird. It was just weird. I'm like, again, I feel like they cut shit out of this movie. Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like at some point the gun mattered, but it's such a weird, like aggressive thing to just have absolutely no payoff, like I feel like it probably did have a payoff once, and then we just don't get the version where that's the case.
Well, he pulls the gun from the glove box. Yes, he threatens him, and he says, "I'll kill you and everybody you love. That's what I'll do to protect my family." And then he really nails this down by at the end saying, "I just saved your life. What do you say?" And Peter says, "Thank you," and walks out of the car.
Yep.
Which, again, the most intense part of the entire movie, I thought was incredibly well acted by Michael Keaton. This was in the trailer for the movie, by the way. Like,
Wait,
part
really?
of it. Part of it. Like,
God,
the
why
part
watch
where
trailers?
he
That's
says...
so lame.
No, I just don't watch
The part where he
trailers
says, "I'll kill you and your entire family." It's like a backtrack to
Right.
it, but it's one of those things that like got people really excited to see Michael Keaton in this role because he's a really strong actor.
Totally.
But yeah, this was one of the moments that really got people. I mean, hey, it led them to getting $880 million in the box office. So
Yeah,
like,
hey, fuck it,
if that's
dude, why
what brings
not?
people in, you know? Peter chooses wrong, essentially. That's what happens here, is he goes into the dance and then immediately leaves, which it looks like he already made his decision before he went in.
Right.
Because we find out his phone is left in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm going to point out again in this moment, okay, Peter's supposed to come through for Liz, says, "Oh shit, I have to go." And then her father is captured by Spiderman after this, and she still has not put it together by the end of the movie. Just throwing that
But
out
do we
there.
know that that's what happens? Like, do we know that it's announced that Spider-Man takes down the Vulture?
I mean,
like, 'cause
they
the way that
find
I
this
kind of-
dude like covered in web around like a scene full of web.
Well, that's what
with a-
damage control finds.
Yeah, with a note,
That's not
yeah.
That's not necessarily what's in the media, right? Like,
yeah, I guess we don't know what's in the media, I suppose.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, yes, that's what Happy and Damage Control finds,
Right.
but that's not necessarily what's placed out in the world after that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, word. Anyway, so
I mean, there's nothing that told Liz
Right.
that Spider-Man was who took down
I know.
her
I
father.
just realized we literally skipped all the way to the end. So
I know, yes.
We have a little setup before we get there.
Well, Ned gets to be the guy at the computer here now. Finally, his role has come into place because now Peter has decided he's going to go after him. So he puts on his first suit, which is the goggles. It's also the one we saw in Civil War. It's his original spider suit here, which obviously is not as good as his Tony Stark suit because he
Not quite.
immediately loses one of his web shooters against Shocker.
And but he gets Shocker in the end anyway with a little assist from his friend
Ned.
Ned,
yeah.
Ned shows up and gets him, and then he makes quick work of Shocker.
And this is where now the stuff that was set up at the start, which is they're moving out of Avengers Tower, and they're moving all of the equipment out. There's some notes about what they're moving, which includes a new prototype for Captain America's shield, Thor's magic belt, which, by the way, that's not a thing that ever appears in the MCU in the future.
Okay, cool.
Again, a lot of weird. It's a Sony influenced Marvel MCU movie.
Sure.
Like that's really what I got out of a lot of this in rewatching it, because when I watched it the first time, it was the newest movie. There wasn't anything after it, right? So it's like now watching it again, I'm like, wow, it's amazing how much they tried to set up in this movie that never pays off in the
There's
future.
just a lot of threads that go nowhere.
Yeah, for sure.
totally.
Yep, and so they're going to track him down, and Vulture's there. He's there waiting for Spider-Man to show up. He knows that he's gone after him. And this is where we get the talk from Vulture about hating the rich and the powerful.
Yeah.
And the Tony Starks of the world. Why are you on his side? It's unclear, this whole talk. And really the whole idea is that he's just stalling for time before his new wings come into the place there, which the reveal didn't hit as hard for me, I guess, that they were new wings versus his old ones. So
Honestly,
I thought,
until
it's
you
fine.
said it right now, I didn't know they were new wings.
They were new,
literally,
yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, I mean, they were completely different wings, by the way. Like, his first wings had the propellers inside the middle of it, and the new wings had them above his head. Like, and then the wings were longer and they were full.
Right,
like, they
because
weren't.
that
It
was
looked
like
more
the
like a
atmospheric
Digimon.
pressure thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. It took the propellers out of the wings so that they could make it,
they could do
a
the
sealable.
Got you.
That makes sense now that you say that. I just when he was like, "Oh, I was just stalling for time," I figured that it was like the wings had to like rev up for a second to like crash.
No, they
through
were
the-
actually in another state behind a barn door, and they
I
couldn't
know,
get
and-
out
yeah,
because
and
there was a lock
and
on the
small
door.
child with magic in his eyes had to
Yeah.
like unlock the wooden door for the things
Yeah.
to get out. Yeah, totally, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyways, the whole garage falls onto Peter as Vulture makes his escape to then go take the content from the Stark plane. This is where we get a little moment here where Peter has to really believe in himself to gain the power to get out of this rubble. Which another maybe CGI-ish kind of thing here. We see the half mask, half Peter moment, which looked terrible to me. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but like for me, I didn't know whether it was CGI or not. It had to have had some level of CGI. I don't think you're going to get that great of a reflection if it's not.
Yeah.
But it just looked bad. I don't know. It looked just really terrible in this like moment where he's supposed to be looking inside himself and like this big, powerful internal struggle moment for him kind of fell a little flat with that water reflection for me.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I didn't
Yeah, I didn't-
100% like it didn't stand out to me as like egregious.
Really?
But I mean, it was just like corny. Like it was just cheesy. It was
Well,
just, like,
yeah, I
some cheesy
wrote
shit,
kind
you
of
know?
cheesy.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and
It
so
was
and so I
cheesy.
think for me, like, you know, if it had been like an emotionally impactful moment, but the CGI was off, I probably would have been a little bit more nitpicky on the CGI.
Sure.
But that was just sort of goofy. And so
Yeah.
it's like the CGI not being up to snuff just adds to it being kind of goofy, you know?
Yeah.
Sure,
That was supposed
sure.
to be
I
like a
agree.
reference to like Spider-Man number 33 or something like that.
Oh no.
Yeah, they like recreated the scene from Spider-Man number 33, which was it's supposed to be like an iconic moment in the Spider-Man comics. I don't know. I never read them, but
Yeah.
if you were a fan of those and you thought that the CGI was bad, that would have sucked for you.
Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, also, it kind of makes me laugh that then at the end he just, like, lifts the rubble anyway. It's like, did he forget he was Spider-Man for a minute? Like, what the fuck was that? He was just like, I need
Yeah, I
help.
mean-
I need someone to help. And he's like, oh, right.
I think he
the
was
super
defeated.
strength. Let me just,
Yeah.
Well, I think he was using his strength before, but he was pretty defeated in that moment.
needed
Like he
a-
had been taken down. He has no suit. Like, you know.
he needed a proverbial like smelling salts to get himself to lift all that shit up.
right.
Yeah. Vulture makes it onto the Stark Tech plane. He sees arc reactors, Iron Man tech, suits. I mean, this is like the gold mine that they've been looking for here. When there he is, Spider-Man is here. He breaks the seal. And it is time for a plane jump moment.
Yep.
I don't know if you would
Classic
consider
and
this or not
iconic.
a plane jump.
I think you can. It's a jump from a plane, is it not?
Sure, yeah. I think as they're fighting in the air, the plane then is going to start crashing down. And this is when Happy is going to see the plane crashing because the decoy has led them to believe that the plane is still en route to the upstate facility in New York. But yeah, so as the plane is about to crash, Peter, as Spider-Man, jumps off of it. So I guess, you know, we got another plane crash or a plane jump moment here before the final moments of this fight between Vulture and Spider-Man. Let's see. So Vulture's wings are like really screwed up. I also like the effect of when Spider-Man kind of comes to wake up. His ears are ringing and he doesn't really hear anything. You see Vulture flying in at him real fast.
I thought that was really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Again, dude,
that was
like,
a cool moment.
Like Vulture's just like ruthless and scary.
Yeah.
He's like a ruthless, scary, imposing figure, and I feel like they did that really well. Yeah, the whole scene and like aesthetically, it was cool too. Like all the fire on the ground everywhere, like them fighting. That was tight. Yeah, I thought this was a cool final fight. You know.
Yeah, and I thought that.
And then Vulture sees the Stark Tech, and he's going to try to lift that up off the ground.
Right,
still.
because he's sort of crazed at this point.
Yeah, the coolest part to me about this fight is that it ends not with Peter like finishing off the bad guy, but for him trying to save the bad guy from like himself. And that is probably the most like Spider-Man thing that you could put into a fight scene.
Yes.
So one thing I'll say about this point too is that if this wasn't made by Sony, I think they would have killed Vulture. I think that this would have been Vulture's death scene versus his capture scene where he gets taken away to prison. Because I think here again is another instance of Sony trying to set up threads for future movies, which, by the way, spoiler alert, Vulture makes an appearance in the end credit scene of Morbius.
Morbin time.
Which
Really?
Yeah.
the worst.
Michael Keaton Vulture?
Michael Keaton as Vulture shows up at the end credit scene of Morbius. And Morbius is well known as the worst Marvel movie ever created.
No.
Like worse than Hulk,
No.
worse. Yeah, come on.
I don't think so.
I haven't even seen it,
watched
honestly,
it.
but I go off what I've been told from others that I know like Marvel movies, and I've been told it is pretty terrible.
It's on par with Dark World probably. But
Oh, okay. Well, I
that's still
pretty
think
bad.
that Incredible Hulk is like worse.
Yeah, Incredible
Really?
Hulk was pretty dang bad.
Incredible
dude.
Hulk was terrible.
You think Hulk was worse than Dark World?
Yeah, I think
What?
so. As a film, yeah.
Is that like a question? Yeah,
Yeah.
of course it was. Yeah.
Dark World was
Really?
very
Oh,
just
man.
like it was a movie and it was boring.
Yeah, it was just like
But-
generic.
but
yeah.
Hulk
Dark
was
World was
bad.
so bad though that we had to break format for that.
Because
Yeah.
there was nothing to say about it.
right.
You know?
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
But I would also say I think that by the time that we're getting like meta about our fucking podcast now, but like
Sure.
but I think that if the Hulk had happened in phase 2, it would have been a more similar podcast to the Dark World one where we all would have just been shitting on it. I just think that because
Sure.
Hulk was like the second one that we watched, we hadn't totally gotten into our rhythm yet, and you still felt like you needed to defend it, and because that was like still very much the structure at that point, so it's like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know.
But,
maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, he fucking kills Vulture. Vulture's dead
No,
now.
Yes.
He beats Vulture to death. He bashes his fucking head in with a rock. And
Oh,
that's
well,
the end of the
okay.
movie. The
And
end.
oh, God, that's the end of the podcast. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, he
Anyways.
does it. He doesn't do that. None of that happens.
No.
Where
Happy and Damage Control show up, and that's where they see the webbed up Vulture
Right.
along with all of the Stark tech
Yeah,
put together.
that was kind of fun with like a little note that's like, hey,
Yeah.
left this for you.
Liz is going to be leaving the school because her dad's in prison. They're going to move to Oregon.
Hold on. Do we get to see Liz again, or is Liz just gone?
Never.
think
Yeah,
she's
she's
just
gone
gone,
forever.
yeah.
That's it.
Jesus Christ, dude! What a horrible
But there's no
character.
reason for her to ever come back. Why would she ever come back?
I don't know. I was just asking. I'm just like this movie. She like accomplished like literally nothing. Had no personality. Was just like not interesting or good at anything really. And then her dad goes to prison. She moves to Oregon, and then that's it. That's the end.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you
Yep.
go.
And for the
R.I.P.
rest of her life, that's what she'll be known as an actress.
right? Carpe
Is the
your
person
diem,
who.
dude. Yep.
Yep. Anyways, we get revealed here that there's going to be a new team captain now that Liz is gone, and it's going to be Michelle. But guess what? She prefers to be called MJ.
Whoa.
What? Which stands for Michelle Jones, who is played by Zendaya, who is now the MJ of the MCU.
Right.
Happy shows up at the school and tells Peter that he really owes him one for saving all that Stark tech, and that Tony wants to talk to him. But he's not in the bathroom with them, by the way. He's upstate at the Avengers campus, okay?
Right.
He's not sitting on the toilet which, by the way, I'll throw out there because I'm going to nitpick for a second. Why would Happy start having that conversation if he knew that the kid was in the bathroom already?
Right, I know, because he's been standing there the whole time.
Yeah.
So he would. I know. I noticed that too.
I
It's like
didn't-
it doesn't make sense.
Like, I'm going to call that one out
Yeah.
because that was dumb.
Yeah,
That
it was just
actually
like a
dumb.
trying to be like a comedy relief moment, and even then, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yep.
Anyways, Peter heads upstate to the new Avengers facility that's replacing Avengers Tower. And Tony says that, if it wasn't for Tony in this moment, Peter really wouldn't have learned anything. It was the tough love that Tony provided here that really got Spider-Man to save the day. So good work, Tony.
Yeah,
you really did a
shout-outs.
great job here. And then he reveals to Peter that he's going to name him as part of the Avengers, and we see the reveal of the Iron Spider suit, which is an even more upgraded version mix between an Iron Man suit and a Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, but he will not be able to don it this day.
Nope, he will not. Peter turns down the offer because he wants to say the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for now.
Yep.
Was that a test, though? I don't know. Tony, was it a test? Yeah, of course. He never actually meant that. There's no room of reporters next door. No, not at all.
Right, and this is where we get our Pepper cameo.
Hey, you know what? In this time, to their credit, they didn't just mention Pepper and then not have her in it.
Yeah, hey, why the fuck not, dude? Yeah, she's there. She's in the mix.
Yeah, there was actually a moment where Gwyneth Paltrow does an interview a couple years later and says that she had never met Tom Holland before or been in a scene with him because she actually forgot recording this cameo.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, they were together on the Graham Norton show. Like, they were on the show together, and she had said this is the first time she met Tom in person. And Tom goes, no, you in Spider-Man, in my movie, you came in and filmed a cameo.
Yeah.
And she just forgot, which I guess she was busy with goop at the moment.
Busy with goop. Also, did she get work done in between the last movie and this one? She looks way different. I just noticed that.
I don't know.
I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm like that.
Yeah.
She looks super duper not like she looked in Iron Man 2, which is the last time we saw her. Just shout outs.
Peter gets home.
Yep.
He finds a bag with his suit in it.
Yep.
And he puts the suit on, and then the camera reveals that Aunt May is right behind him, and she goes, "What the?"
Yeah.
F.
You can't say that in a PG-13 movie,
right? Which also, it's like, that was stupid. That's a dumb way to end
Oh, come on. That's
why is he putting it on with the door open, you know?
Right.
Because she wasn't home. Like, come on. It was a fun moment. Just give it that.
Nah.
It was fun.
Sure, fine. Yeah, I guess.
I
guess
it was fun.
I guess it was fun. Why not?
It was fun. Ask Allison if it was fun, and then we'll agree. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
It was fun.
Hold on, I will.
No.
I'm going to.
Okay, well, I'm curious to see if Allison thinks that was fun, because I think it was fun. Wow, we're so you guys can't see this, obviously. This is an audio-only podcast, but Christian has gotten up from his computer, and he's left his room to ask Allison whether this moment was fun or not.
What is he doing, Allison? Christian, stop!
No, don't do that. No, just kidding. All right, he's back.
All right, here's Allison.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
Allison, was the end of Spider-Man, quote unquote, fun?
Can you remind me what happened, please?
Aunt May, he's like changing into his new suit, and Aunt May comes into the room.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, "What the?" And then it's like, cut. So would you call that fun?
It was actually kind of stupid.
Okay, there you go.
All right. You know what? I'm not interested in Allison's
I liked the movie
opinion.
overall, but that part was kind of stupid.
Woo!
Okay,
Get
well.
fucked, Dan. How about that?
All right. You know what? Just, I don't know how much you're paying her to give these opinions, but I'm not interested in this bribery that's happening.
Yeah, see, I'm just saying, bro. Listen, there's a reason me and Allison work so well together. If you're
All right.
ever
Well,
trying
it was
to get
pretty
your
fun.
opinion reinforced, it's just, it's
She
a
bought her a
wrong
house.
tree.
She has to say whatever.
I'm never going to ask her opinion again. All right. Well, that's it. That's the end of the movie. We get two little end credit scenes here. We get a mid credit with Vulture in jail. Michael Mando's character, who we find out is the Scorpion, who never shows up again, by the way. And Vulture lies and says he doesn't know who Spider-Man is.
Right,
and I think...
Okay, but can I say really quick the thing where
Yes.
it's like, I heard a rumor you know who he is. And it's like, how? How did you hear that rumor? Like, who the fuck would know that? Like, he didn't say it to anyone. Like, and he denies. So it's like, how the fuck would word ever have gotten out that Vulture knows who Spider-Man is? It just like, it literally does not make sense.
So you're right. It doesn't happen in the movie. If I made up my own headcanon,
Right.
which I'm going to do here for
Okay,
half a
yeah, let's
second,
hear it.
he leaves Homecoming
Okay.
knowing that Peter is Spider-Man.
Right.
And then goes and plans his next move with his crew, including getting the new wings, setting up the Stark heist and all of that, where I think he could have told his crew, I know who Spider-Man is. It doesn't necessarily mean that he told them who he is,
Right.
but that he has a leg up on Spider-Man now because he knows his identity.
Sure, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
why not?
headcanon. I'm
Let's
just
go
saying,
with it.
I agree, we don't hear how it's a rumor,
Right.
but it can be explained based on the sequence events of the
Sure.
movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Great. All right, 1 point for me. Anyway, so he doesn't reveal it. That ends that scene. And then finally, we get an end credit scene with our third Captain America promo video about patience.
That's funny. That's
And
a funny way to end.
about
that
how
was good.
sometimes, even if you have a ton of patience, it still doesn't matter because it leads to nowhere. The end.
Yep.
And Spider-Man will return.
Sony.
Sony again.
Spider-Man will return. It's like in tiny fonts, like Sony, just huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a movie. That's
Yeah,
a
it's a
movie.
movie.
That's almost a podcast. In case you haven't heard what our thoughts are through the entirety of this very long podcast, I think we'll go with some final thoughts across the board here, including what Christian liked, what I didn't, and John's final thoughts.
I'm going to keep this quick, dude, because this is actually weirdly enough gearing up to be probably one of our longest podcasts about
Yes.
a movie that I think like wasn't really all that interesting, honestly. So quickly, what I liked, I already said it before, but I thought that it was cool how we got to see a Spider-Man kind of coming into himself as being like, going from sort of where he was at the beginning of the movie, which was just a guy with powers who didn't necessarily understand the weight or consequence of having them until the end of the movie, where he understands the weight and consequence of the powers that he has, which is part of the reason why he declines joining the Avengers, because he understands that maybe he's not at the point where he's ready to do that yet. I thought that they showed it interestingly throughout his actions in the movie. I called out, but again, the chase scenes where he's like running and tripping over things, I thought that those were really well done. I thought his sort of awkward, jerky movements were well done. I thought that the ATM scene was well done. Like even him fighting just your sort of regular street level goons was done in a bit of a clunky way. And even, we sort of like glossed over it, but when he's fighting like Vulture and stuff, and he's just sort of like hanging on the back of Vulture. It's like, it's all like very amateurish, but he's like trying to come into his own and figure his stuff out. And I thought that was all cool. That being said, I'd probably give this movie like, I don't know, man, fucking 2.5 maybe, like somewhere in there. 3 if I was being generous, 2 if I was being mean. I can't really decide which one, so we'll just split
I think
the
you
difference.
should bring it to a 3 because of Michael Keaton.
Sure, fine. I'll add 0.5 for Michael Keaton
Hell
and give
yeah.
this movie a definitive 3. I thought the characters were one-dimensional, and I thought that if I could say, and I know that this isn't the let me complain about everything corner, but I'll say I think the biggest issue that I had with this movie was that it was like as shallow as a puddle. Like it was really very much just kind of an action movie. And if you're into that, then that is fine. And you could watch this, but it's really what you see is what you get. There's not a ton of depth, not a ton of dynamics between characters, whatever. It's kind of just like Spider-Man doing Spider-Man shit. And if that's enough for you, you'd probably like it. It really wasn't enough for me, but the things it did well, I can at least appreciate it did well. And that would be my rating.
Sick.
Yeah. Great. I agree with you on some of these
You
things.
agree it's a 3. Nice.
No, I don't agree that it was a 3. But
classic Dan
what I didn't
3
like
agree.
about this movie was that this was clearly a Marvel MCU movie influenced by Sony. Like, that's what I got out of this. If this was Sony only made this and used Tom Holland and happened to cast all the same people and happened to cast the same director, but it was Sony only with no influence from Disney or Marvel, this would have been way worse. I think the only reason why it is at for me, 6 6.5 out of 10, by the way.
Ooh, that's even lower than I figured you were going to rate it too, by the way.
It is lower because I agree that there was so much in this movie that was clearly influenced by Sony that it took it down quite a lot. There was Shocker, Scorpion, Aaron Davis, more that I'm probably not even thinking of off the top of my head that were mentioned as integral parts of Spider-Man's story that are never mentioned again because clearly they're just trying to build out their own version of the MCU within Sony,
right.
Which is also defined by the fact that they're now potentially casting Donald Glover to be another character in the Sony Marvel universe, which is different than the Disney MCU. Sony is pulling at any potential thread they can to try to make a movie. And another couple nitpicks is just around the CGI stuff. Again, like one of the most impactful Tony Peter moments in the entire movie was shittily edited, in my opinion. Meaning the CGI was pretty bad. You could tell that the background was green screen. Tony's hair was all blurred out because of the green screen background. It was like a first edit tossed into a movie, which to your points previously, there seemed to be a lot of points in this movie that were edited as if nobody touched them again.
Yeah.
So anyways, 6.5 out of 10.
Damn,
cool.
nice.
There you go.
Yeah, so the thing that I'll say that I don't think overlaps with you guys as much is that I have basically at this point in the MCU have mentally checked out. Like, this is the point in the MCU, like I think I said it for Guardians of the Galaxy as well, where it's like the level of quality has gotten to a point where like it doesn't matter really what they put in the movie. As long as they hit that baseline, I can just turn my brain off and watch it all the way through and be like, yep, that was a movie. But overall, I think that what I wanted out of this movie was more of Spider-Man, and what we got was like pre-Spider-Man, and I think that's why I didn't like it as much. It also, like you guys said, it does suffer from a lot of quality issues, so it is a little bit subpar compared to like the rest of the Phase 3 MCU stuff. But overall, I think I also am going to give it a 6.5. It's
there it is.
It's a movie.
It is a movie.
It is. It is.
And I think we can all
movie.
agree on that. Like, yeah, that was sort of my sense when I finished it last night. Is I was like, well, that's a movie that I just watched.
Well, we'll see how this goes next week because
what is next week?
I think I can definitively say that next week's movie is actually going to be good, which is Thor Ragnarok.
Ooh.
Which is a funny
sell,
thing to
dude.
say after Thor Dark World. I get it. Trust me, it is a hard sell. But I will say, as a little teaser, Taika Waititi is the one who directs Thor Ragnarok.
I don't know who that is.
And Thor goes in a completely new direction.
Can I say?
We do not see the Thor of the past in this movie. So,
Sure.
yeah, we'll see. I'm really interested to see what you end up thinking about Thor Ragnarok
I'm
because
already tired of Taika Waititi. But you know, that's just me, I guess.
well, we got
Who
to
is
try to
that?
go into the mindset of
What do they do?
He's a director.
what we do in the shadows.
I like what we do in the shadows.
I know.
Anything else? Any other accolades?
Thor Ragnarok.
Don't say Thor Ragnarok. Don't say Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok.
Don't say Thor Ragnarok.
Well, how about we discuss it at the start of the next
that's
podcast?
right. Yeah, this podcast is gonna be like fucking 3
All right,
hours
everyone.
long. All right, bye.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.